remember a former brother of mine, Darrenell, he used to know how to do it easily, and he told me he was going to eventually teach me how to do it, but we stopped being in fellowship, so that kind of never happened. So I never found out how to do it from my end, the settings, and all that. So anyway, so we're live now. We should be live. Um, all right, so everyone, we're back. Brother Dennis is going to be doing our Samuel reading for us. He's going to start us off in First Samuel chapters 20 to 26. So let me just get, for the viewers and listeners, before Brother Dennis starts, and I'll mute myself, I want to get the word software on the shared screen for people that don't have their physical scriptures. I'll just use that like I always do, the word software. Let's see here. Come on, word. Come on, hurry up. All right, so let's see here.
Is that 20 to 26 or 21 to 26?
20 to 26.
Okay.
Yeah. All right, so here we go. I got the shared screen on here. All right, Brother Dennis, go away.
Okay. Okay, chapter 20. And David fled from Noeth in Ramah and went and said to Jonathan, "What have I done? What is my crookedness, and what is my sin before your father, that he seeks my life?" And Jonathan said to him, "Far be it. You are not going to die. For see, my father does no big matter nor small matter without disclosing it to me. And why should my father hide this matter from me, if it is not so?" But David swore again and said, "Your father knows well that I have found favor in your eyes." And he says, "Do not let Jonathan know this, lest he be grieved. But truly, as Yahuwah lives, and as your being lives, there is but a step between me and death." And Jonathan said to David, "Whatever your desire is, I do it for you." And David said to Jonathan, "See, tomorrow is the new moon, and I ought to sit with the sovereign to eat. But let me go, and I shall hide in the field until the third day at evening. If your father misses me at all, then you shall say, David earnestly asked my permission to run over to Bethlehem, his city, for a yearly slaughtering is made there for all the clan. If he says thus, it is well, your servant is safe. But if he is very displeased, then know that he has resolved to do evil. And you shall show kindness to your servant, for you have brought your servant into a covenant of Yahuwah with you. And if there is crookedness in me, put me to death yourself, for why should you bring me to your father?" And Jonathan said, "Far be it from you, for if I knew with certainty that my father was resolved that evil is to come upon you, then would I not make it known to you?" And David said to Jonathan, "Who would make it known to me? Or what if your father answers you sharply?" And Jonathan said to David, "Come and let us go out into the field." And they both went out into the field. And Jonathan said to David, "Yahuwah Elohim of Yisrael be witness, when I search out my father sometime tomorrow or the third day, and see if there is good toward David, and I do not send you or disclose it to you, so let Yahuwah do so, and much more to Jonathan. And if it pleases my father to do you evil, then I shall disclose it to you and send you away, and you shall go in peace. And Yahuwah be with you as he has been with my father. But show me the kindness of Yahuwah, not only while I still live, so that I do not die, and do not cut off your kindness from my house forever. No, not when Yahuwah has cut off every one of the enemies of David from the face of the earth. And Jonathan made a covenant with the house of David, saying, Yahuwah shall require it at the hand of the enemies of David. And Jonathan again said, may David answer, swear, because he loved him, for he moved him as he loved his own being. So Jonathan said to him, tomorrow is the new moon, and you shall be missed, because your seat shall be empty. And on the third day, go down quickly, and you shall come to the place where you hid on the day of the deed, and shall remain by the stone itself. And let me shoot 3 arrows to the side of it as though shooting at a target. And see, I shall send the youth, saying, go, find the arrows. If I expressly say to the youth, look, the arrows are on this side of you, get them and come. Then, as Yahuwah lives, there is safety for you and no concern. But if I say thus to the youth, look, the arrows are beyond you, go your way, for Yahuwah has sent you away. And as for the word which you and I have spoken of, see, Yahuwah is between you and me forever. And David hid in the field. And when the new moon came, the sovereign sat down by the food to eat. And the sovereign sat on his seat, as at other times, and on the seat by the wall, with Jonathan standing and Abner sitting by Shaul's side. But the place of David was empty. But Shaul spoke not a word that day, for he thought, it is an accident. He is not clean, for he has not been cleansed. And it came to be the next day, the second day of the month, that David's place was empty. And Shaul said to Jonathan his son, why has the son of Jesse not come to eat, either yesterday or today? And Jonathan answered, Shaul, David earnestly asked my permission to go to Bethlehem. And he said, please let me go, for our clan has a slaughtering in the city, and my brother has commanded me to be there. And now I have found favor in your eyes. Please let me get away and see my brothers. That is why he has not come to the sovereign's table. Then the displeasure of Shaul burned against Jonathan, and he said to him, you son of a perverse, rebellious woman, do I not know that you have chosen the son of Jesse to your own shame and to the shame of your mother's nakedness? For as long as the son of Jesse lives on the earth, you shall not be established, you and your reign. And now send and bring him to me, for he is a son of death. And Jonathan answered Shaul, his father, and said to him, why should he be put to death? What has he done? At that, Shaul hurled a spear at him to smite him. Then Jonathan knew that his father had resolved to put David to death. And Jonathan rose up from the table in the heat of displeasure and ate no food the second day of the month, for he was grieved for David, because his father put him to shame. And it came to be in the morning that Jonathan went out into the field at the time appointed with David, and a small youth was with him. And he said to the youth, now run, find the arrow which I shoot. As the youth ran, he shot an arrow beyond him. And when the youth came to the place where the arrow was which Jonathan had shot, Jonathan called out after the youth and said, is not the arrow beyond you? And Jonathan shouted after the youth, make haste, hurry, do not stand still. And Jonathan's youth picked up the arrows and came to his master. But the youth knew not to speak. Only Jonathan and David knew of the matter. Then David gave his weapons to the youth and said to him, go, take them to the city. And as soon as the youth had gone, David rose up from the south side and fell on his face to the ground and bowed down 3 times, and they kissed one another, and they wept together, but David more so. And Jonathan said to David, "Go in peace, since we have both sworn in the name of Yahuwah, saying, Yahuwah is between you and me, and between your seed and my seed forever." Then he rose and left, and Jonathan went into the city. And David came to Nob, to Abimelech the priest, and Abimelech trembled when he met David, and asked him, "Why are you alone, and no one is with you?" And David said to Abimelech the priest, "The sovereign has commanded me a word, and said to me, let no one know whatever of the word about which I send you, and which I have commanded you. And I have directed my young men to search to such a place. And now, what do you have on hand?" "Give 5 loaves into my hand, or whatever is found." And the priest answered David and said,
"Oh, I'm sorry, Brother Dennis. I'm sorry. I'm completely off today. The Gibsons were trying to mention to me here on the chat. Yeah, it's actually 26-31. So my bad.
Oh.
I'm so sorry. That is totally my fault.
Totally. Oh, that's okay.
So let's see. How are we going to split this up here? Let's see here to do this quickly. You could do 26-29, and I guess Sister. Yeah, you could actually do 26-31, and we'll have Josie do 2 Samuel chapter 1 and chapter 7.
Okay, well, yeah. 26 to 31.
My bad about that. I apologize again.
That's okay. We probably need to rehearse it anyway. Okay, 26. And the Ziphites came to Shaul at Gibeah, saying, "Is not David hiding himself in the hill of Hachilah, overlooking the wasteland?" And Shaul rose up and went down to the wilderness of Ziph, and with him 3,000 chosen men of Jezreel, to seek David in the wilderness of Ziph. And Shaul encamped in the hill of Hachilah, overlooking the wasteland by the way, while David was dwelling in the wilderness, and he saw that Shaul came after him into the wilderness. And David sent out spies and learned that Shaul had indeed come. And David rose up and came to the place where Shaul had encamped. And David saw the place where Shaul lay, and Abner, son of Ner, the commander of his army. And Shaul was laying within the enclosure, with the people encamped all around him. And David spoke up and said to Abimelech the Hittite, and to Abishai, son of Zeruiah, brother of Joab, saying, "Who does go down with me to Shaul in the camp?" And Abishai said, I go down with you. And David and Abishai came to the people by night and saw Shaul lying asleep within the camp, with his spear stuck in the ground by his head. And Abner and the people lay all around him. And Abishai said to David, "Yahuwah has surrounded your enemy, into your hand this day. And now, please, let me smite him at once with the spear, right into the earth, and not a second time." But David said to Abishai, "Do not destroy him, for who shall stretch out his hand against the anointing of Yahuwah and be guiltless?" David also said, "As Yahuwah lives, except Yahuwah does smite him, or his day come that he shall die, or he shall go into battle and perish. Far be it from me that Yahuwah, that I stretch out my hand against the anointed of Yahuwah. And now, please take the spear and the jug of water that are by his head, and let us go. So David took the spear and the jug of water by Shaul's head, and they went away. And no man saw it, or knew it, or awoke, for they were all asleep, because a deep sleep from Yahuwah had fallen on them. And David passed over to the other side and stood on the top of a hill far away, a great distance between them. And Yahuwah called out to the people, and David called out to the people and to Abner, son of Ner, saying, Do you not answer, Abner? And Abner answered and said, Who are you, calling out to the sovereign? And David said to Abner, Are you not a man? And who is like you in Yisrael? Why then have you not guarded your master and sovereign? For one of the people came in to destroy your master and sovereign. What you have done is not good, or Tob. As Yahuwah lives, you are worthy to die, because you have not guarded your master, the anointed of Yahuwah. And now, see where the sovereign's spear is, and the jug of water that was by his head. And Shaul recognized David's voice and said, Is that your voice, my son David? And David said, It is my voice, my master, O sovereign. And he said, Why is this that my master is pursuing his servant? For what have I done, and what evil is in my hand? And now, please let my master, the sovereign, hear the words of his servant. If Yahuwah has moved you against me, let him accept an offering. But if it is the children of men, that they are cursed before Yahuwah, for they have driven me out today, and I should not join myself to the inheritance of Yahuwah, saying, Go, serve other mighty ones. And now, do not let my blood fall to the earth before the face of Yahuwah, for the sovereign of Yisrael has come out to speak a plea, as when one hunts a partridge in the mountains. And Shaul said, I have sinned. Come back, my son David, for no more am I going to do evil to you, because my life was precious in your eyes today. See, I have acted foolishly and have greatly strayed. And David answered and said, See the sovereign's spear, and let one of the young men come over and get it, and let Yahuwah reward every man for his righteousness and his trustworthiness. For this day Yahuwah gave you into my hand. But I would not stretch out my hand against the anointed of Yahuwah. And see, as your life has been valued in my eyes today, so let my life be valued in the eyes of Yahuwah, and let him deliver me out of all distress. And Shaul said to David, Barak are you, my son David, achieving much, and indeed prevailing. Then David went on his way, and Shaul returned to his place. That it, 26.
Okay, we could continue with 27 there. I don't think there's anything to really expound upon. I think what I'll do, brother, just so it's quicker, we could, as soon as you and Josie finish the readings, then we'll go if anything stands out. That way we're not constantly stopping.
Are we on 27 now, Brother Doug?
Yes. I'm going to just get the page ready for people that are,
Okay.
that don't have a physical scripture. All right. Yep. Go ahead, Brother Dennis.
Do 27?
Me or Dennis?
Yep. 26 to 29, brother. Yep. So you're gonna read
Okay.
up
Oh.
to 29. Oh no, my bad.
Okay.
No. Hold on. Let me just make sure. I'm always confusing myself
No,
here.
you did change it. I don't think Josie heard you.
Yeah,
tell her
no.
second.
No, it's yeah, so you're going to be reading up to chapter 31, brother. You'll stop after chapter 31 and then Josie has 2 Samuel chapter 1 all the way to chapter 7.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Okay.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
Well,
Because
I
I
need
messed up
revelation.
before. Yeah.
Okay.
All right. Here
So
we go.
I go to 31.
Yes.
Okay. And David said in his heart, now I shall perish by the hand of Saul someday. There is nothing better for me than to escape to the land of the Philistines. And Saul shall give up searching for me any longer in any part of Israel, and I shall escape out of his hand. So David rose up and passed over with the 600 men who were with him to Achish, son of Maoch, sovereign of Gath. And David dwelt in Achish at Gath. He and his men, each man with his household. David with his 2 wives, Abinoam and Jezreelatis, and Abigail and Carmelitis, Nabal's widow. I thought that was yeah. And it was reported to Saul that David had fled to Gath, so he thought he sought him no more. And David said to Achish, if I have now found favor in your eyes, let them give me a place in some town in the country to dwell there. For why should your servant dwell in the royal city with you? And Achish gave him Ziklag that day. That is why Ziklag has belonged to the sovereigns of Yehudah to this day. In the time that David dwelt in the country of the Philistines came to be 1 year and 4 months. And David and his men went up and raided the Geshurites and the Gershites and the Amalekites, for those nations were the inhabitants of the land from of old, as you go to Shur, even as far as the land of Mitzrayim. And when David had smitten the land, he left neither man nor woman alive, but took away sheep and cattle and donkeys and camels and garments, and returned and came to Achish. And Achish would say, where have you made a raid today? And David would say, against the south of Yehudah, or against the south of the Yerahmeelites, or against the south of the Kenites. David did not keep alive man or woman to bring news to Gath, saying, lest they inform against us, saying, thus David said. And this was his practice all the days that he dwelt in the country of the Philistines. And Achish trusted David, saying to himself, he has indeed made himself a stench to his people in Israel, and has become my servant forever. 28. And it came to be in those days that the Philistines gathered their armies for battle to fight with Israel, and Achish said to David, you know, of course, that you are to go out with me in the army, you and your men. And David said to Achish, very well, you shall know what your servant shall do. And Achish said to David, very well, I make you one of my chief guardians forever. And Samuel had died, and all Israel had mourned for him and buried him in Ramah, in his own city. And Saul had put away the mediums and the spiritists from the land. And the Philistines were gathered and camped and came and camped at Shunem. And Saul gathered at Yisrael, and they encamped at Gilboa. And when Saul saw the army of the Philistines, he was afraid, and his heart trembled greatly. And Shaul inquired of Yahuwah, but Yahuwah did not answer him, either by dreams or by Urim or by the prophets. Shaul then said to his servants, "Find me a woman who's a medium, to go to her and inquire of her." And his servants said to him, "Look, there is a woman who is a medium of Endor." And Shaul disguised himself and put on garments and went, and he and 2 men with him, and they came to the woman by night. And he said, "Please divine for me and bring up for me the one I shall name." But the woman said to him, "Look, you know what Shaul has done, how he was cut off the mediums and the spiritists from the land. Why then do you lay a snare for my life to put me to death?" And Shaul swore to her by Yahuwah, saying, "As Yahuwah lives, no punishment comes upon you for this matter." And the woman said, "Whom do I bring up for you?" So he said, "Bring up Samuel for me." And when the woman saw Samuel, she cried out with a loud voice. And the woman spoke to Shaul, saying, "Why have you deceived me? You yourself are Shaul." And the sovereign said to her, "Do not be afraid. What did you see?" And the woman said to Shaul, "I saw a spirit coming out of the earth." And he said to her, "What is his form?" And she said, "An old man is coming up, and he is covered with a mantle." And Shaul knew that it was Samuel, and he bowed with his face to the ground and did obeisance. And Samuel said to Shaul, "Why have you disturbed me by bringing me up?" And Shaul answered, "I am deeply distressed, for the Philistines are fighting against me, and Yahuwah has turned aside from me and does not answer me any more, neither by prophets nor by dreams. So I have called you to reveal to me what I should do." And Samuel said, "And why do you ask me, seeing Yahuwah has turned aside from you and has become your enemy? And Yahuwah has done for himself as he spoke by me. For Yahuwah has torn the reign out of your hand and give it to your neighbor, to David, because you did not obey the voice of Yahuwah, nor execute his burning wrath upon Amalek. Therefore Yahuwah has done this matter to you today. Further, Yahuwah also gives Yisrael with you into the hand of the Philistines. And tomorrow you and your sons are with me. Yahuwah also gives the army of Yisrael into the hand of the Philistines." And immediately Shaul fell on the ground, his complete length, and greatly feared again because of the words of Samuel. And there was no strength in him, for he had eaten no food all day or all night. And the woman came to Shaul and saw that he had been greatly disturbed, and said to him, "See, your female servant has obeyed your voice, and I have put my life in my hands, and has hastened to the words which you spoke to me. And now, please, listen to the voice of your female servant too, and let me set a piece of bread before you and eat, so that you have strength when you go on your way." But he refused and said, "I am not going to eat." But his servants, together with the woman, urged him, and he listened to their voice. So he rose from the ground and sat on the bed. And the woman had a fatted calf in the house, and she quickly slaughtered it. And she took flour and kneaded it, and baked unleavened bread from it. And she brought it before Shaul and his servants. And they ate and rose up and went away that night. 29. And the Philistines gathered all their armies at Aphek, while Yisrael encamped by the fountain which is in Yezreel. And the princes of the Philistines were passing on by hundreds and by thousands. And David and his men were passing on in the rear with Achish. And the princes of the Philistines said, "Who are these Hebrews?" And Achish said to the princes of the Philistines, "Is this not David, the servant of Shaul, sovereign of Yisrael, who has been with me these days, or these years? And to this day I have found no evil in him since he came over." But the princes of the Philistines were wroth with him. And the princes of the Philistines said to him, "Send the man back. Let him return to a place which you have appointed for him, and do not let him go down with us in battle, lest in the battle he become our adversary. For with what could he appease his master, if not with the heads of these men? Is this not David, of whom they sang to each other in dances, saying, Shaul smote his thousands, and David his 10,000s? And Achish called David and said to him, "As Yahweh lives, you have been straight, and your going out and your coming in with me in the army is good in my eyes too. For to this day I have not found evil in you since the day of your coming to me, but in the eyes of the princes you are not good. And now return to go in place, and go in peace, and do no evil in the eyes of the princes of the Philistines." And David said to Achish, "Well, what have I done? And to this day, what have you found in your servant, as long as I have been with you, that I should not go and fight against the enemies of my master, the sovereign?" But Achish answered and said to David, "I know that you are as good, or Tob, in my eyes as the messenger of Yahuwah. But the princes of the Philistines have said, let him not go up with us to the battle. And now rise early in the morning with your master's servants who have come with you. And as soon as you go up early in the morning and have light, then go." And David and his men rose up early to go in the morning to return to the land of the Philistines. And the Philistines went up to Yisrael. 30. And it came to be, when David and his men came to Ziklag on the third day, that the Amalekites had invaded the south of Ziklag, and smote Ziklag and burned it with fire. And they took captive the women and those who were there, from small to great. They did not kill anyone, but they led them away and went their way. And David and his men came to the city and saw it burned with fire, and their wives and their sons and their daughters had been taken captive. And David and the people who were with him lifted up their voices and wept until they had no more power to weep. And David's two wives, Abinoam, the Jezreelitess, and Abigail, the widow of Nabal, the Carmelite, had been taken captive. And David was greatly distressed, for the people spoke of stoning him, because the being of all the people was grieved, each for his sons and his daughters. But David strengthened himself in Yahuwah, his Elohim. And David said to Abiathar, the priest, son of Abimelech, "Please bring the shoulder garment here to me." So Abiathar brought the shoulder garment to David. And David inquired of Yahuwah, saying, "Do I pursue this band? Do I overtake them?" And he answered him, "Pursue, for you shall certainly overtake them and certainly rescue." So David went, he and the 600 men who were with him, and came to the Wadi Besor, where a halt was made by those who were left behind. While David pursued, he and 400 men, for 200 halted, who were too faint to pass over the Wadi Besor. And they found a man in the field, a Mitzrite, and took him to David. And they gave him bread, and he ate. And they let him drink water, and gave him a piece of cake of figs and 2 clusters of raisins. And when he had eaten, his strength came back to him, for he had not eaten bread nor drank water for 3 days and 3 nights. And David said to him, "To whom do you belong, and where are you from?" And he said, "I am a young man from Mitzrayim, servant of an Amalekite, and my master left me behind, for I had been sick 3 days. We attacked the south of the Kerethites, and against that which belongs to Yehudah, and upon the south of Caleb, and we burned Ziklag with fire." And David said to him, "Could you bring me down to this marauding band?" And he said, "Swear to me by Yahuwah that you neither kill me nor surrender me into the hands of my master. Then I bring you down to this marauding band." And he brought him down and saw they were spread out over all the land, eating and drinking and dancing because of all the great spoil which they had taken from the land of the Philistines and from the land of Yehudah. And David smote them from twilight until the evening of the next day, and none of them escaped, except 400 young men who rode on camels and fled. And David rescued all that the Amalekites had taken. David also rescued his 2 wives, and there was none missing to them, whether small or great, whether sons or daughters, or spoil, or whatever they had taken from them. David recovered all. Besides, David captured all the flocks and herds, and they had driven before those livestock. And they said, "This is David's spoil." And David came to the 200 men who were too faint to follow David, who had also been left at the Wadi Besor. And they went out to meet David and to meet the people who were with him. And when David came near the people, he greeted them. And all the evil and worthless men of those who went with David answered and said, "Because they did not go with us, we do not give them any of the spoil that we have rescued, except for every man's wife and children, and let them take them and go." But David said, "My brothers, do not do so with what Yahuwah has given us, who has protected us and gave into the hand the band that came against us, and who would listen to you in this matter. For as his portion is who goes down to the battle, so is his portion who remains with the baggage. They share alike." And it came to be, from the day forward, he appointed it for a law and a right ruling for Israel to this day. And when David came to Ziklag, he sent some of the spoil to the elders of Yehudah, to his friends, saying, "Here is a present for you from the spoil of the enemies of Yahuwah. To those in Beth El, and to those in Ramah of the south, and to those in Yittir, and to those in Aroer, and to those in Sithmoth, and to those in Esthemoth, and to those in Raquel, and to those in the cities of Yermalites, and to those in the cities of the Canaanites, and to those in Hormah, and to those in Koreshim, and to those in Athak, and to those in Hebron, and to all the places where David had gone up and down, he and his men. 31. To the Philistines were fighting against Yasrael, and the men of Yasrael fled from before the Philistines and fell slain on Mount Gilboa. And the Philistines followed hard after Shaul and his sons. And the Philistines smote Jonathan and Abinadab, Malchishua, sons of Shaul. And the battle went hard against Shaul, and the archers hit him so that he was severely wounded by the archers. And Shaul said to his armor bearer, "Draw your sword and thrust me through with it, lest these uncircumcised men come and thrust me through and roll themselves on me." But his armor bearer would not, for he was greatly afraid. So Shaul took the sword and fell on it. And when the armor bearer saw that Shaul was dead, he also fell on his sword and died with him. Thus Shaul died, and 3 of his sons and his armor bearer, and also all his men together on that day. And they saw the men of Yisrael who were beyond the valley, and those who were beyond the Jordan, that the men of Yisrael had fled, and that Shaul and his sons were dead. So they forsook the cities and fled, and the Philistines came and dwelt in them. And the next day it came to be, when the Philistines came to strip the slain, that they found Shaul and his 3 sons fallen on Mount Gilboa. And they cut off his head and stripped off his armor, and sent word throughout the land of the Philistines to announce it in the house of their idols and to the people. And they placed his armor in the house of the Ashtaroth, and they fastened his body to the wall of Beth Shan. And the inhabitants of Yabesh Gilead heard what the Philistines had done to Shaul. And all the brave men arose and went all night and took the body of Shaul and the bodies of his sons from the wall of Beth Shan. And they came to Yabesh and burned them there. And they took their bones and buried them under the tamarisk tree of Yabesh, and fasted for 7 days. The end of the Samuel 1.
Yeah. Wow, there's a lot. Man, Saul got the worst type of burial, man. He right near where does it say here? Ashtaroth. They set up his armor at the temple of Astarte.
Yeah.
Oh man, that is so. I mean, if you understand like the Hebraic culture and constantly they're against the pagans and all that. The pagans
Slap
are
in the
like
face.
that's what you call adding salt to the wound there.
Exactly.
Oh man. So yeah, anyone that doesn't know, and this proves here if you look side by side, which I have on the screen here, the Septuagint and Masoretic text. This is how you know Easter, where it comes from. Okay, Astarte is the same word as Ashtaroth. Okay.
Yeah.
Astarte, Easter. So that's who Easter is. It's this stupid goddess that they worship that goes, historically would go all the way back to Babylon, would go all the way back to Nimrod. According to the pagan history, the story goes is that was his mother/wife. Okay, that's why she's worshipped in the world, like Paul says in the book of Acts, chapter 19. We read a couple of weeks ago. The whole world worships Diana. All of Asia Minor worships Diana, the Ephesians. So, anyway, so that I just found that interesting that they desecrated him after he's dead. They desecrate him even further by putting his armor near Astarte, taking his armor. Wow. I found something interesting too, brother Dennis. The word Jezreel comes up a lot in the past couple of chapters, and I remember in prophecy, Jezreel actually refers to Yasharal, or in your English Bibles, Israel. So it's like a prophetic name or title for Yahuwah's people that you can find in the book of Hosea. Let me just try to find that. There's a phrase in the book of Hosea that says, for great is the day of Jezreel. And I think that's why this is being used all of a sudden, this phrase Jezreel. Um, it's probably just another word for Israel, is what it seems like. I could be wrong. Um, but yeah, let me see here. For great, just try to find that cross reference real quick. I'm not going to spend too much time on this concept, but let me just find this cross reference for everyone. Anyone that's interested, okay. For great is the day of Jezreel. You can find this in the book of Hosea, chapter 2, 22 to 23. Okay, so, and this is actually talking about, if I'm not mistaken, this is talking about the regathering of his people prophetically. This is talking about, let's see here, Yahuwah's mercy on Israel, right? Okay, so, go to the Septuagint here. Okay, so, you can start like from 14 down, all the way down. It's all about taking her back, even though she committed adultery. I'm taking Israel back. It shall come to pass in that day, says Yahuwah, that she shall call me my husband and no longer call me Lord. Okay. I will take away the names of Baal out of her mouth. Adonai, Adonis. Okay. Shall be remembered no more at all. And I will make for them in that day a covenant with wild beasts of the field and with birds of the sky and with the reptiles of the earth. And I will break the bow and the sword and battle from off the earth. You know, kind of like how in Isaiah prophetically it talks about there will be no more war. They'll put swords into plowshares, so on and so forth. Same context. And I will betroth you to myself forever. Yea, I will betroth you to myself in righteousness and in right ruling or judgment, and in mercy and in tender compassions. I will betroth you to myself in trustworthiness. You shall know that I am Yahuwah, and it shall come to pass in that day, says Yahuwah, I will hearken to heaven, and it shall hearken to the earth. And earth shall hearken to the grain, and wine and oil, and they shall hearken to Jezreel. Okay, so now he's calling Israel Jezreel. And I shall sow her to me on the earth, and will love her that was not loved, and will say to that which was not my people, past tense, was not my people, you are my people, and they shall say, you are Yahuwah, my Elohim. Not just that you are my Elohim, you are Yahuwah, my Elohim. Okay, so anyway, I thought I would just mention that and how important that is, because that's showing the connection with Jezreel, the Jezreelites in 1 Samuel 27:3, 1 Samuel 29:1, verse 11 in 1 Samuel 29 mentions Jezreel. Okay. And so we're going to go through these pretty quickly because I know Sister Josie's reading is coming up next. So I'm going to try to go through these very quickly. So 1 Samuel 20:13. I thought was pretty interesting. Let's see here. Yeah, I saw mighty ones ascending out of the earth. So it's calling the demons false gods, basically. That's what it's doing there. If we look at a parallel here, we go to our parallel on the eSword here, and we go to verse 13. Some will say demons or devils. Others will say lowercase gods, meaning, false gods, false mighty ones. So that shows you that demons are alive. They're not just wood and stone. A lot of people misunderstand this concept. They think demons are just a graven image. No. Demons are the power that the pagan is worshiping by using an idol, just to clarify that. Okay. Demon is not the actual idol. Demon is actually a spirit. A demon's a spirit. Okay. So it's talking about, basically unclean spirits ascending out of the earth and calling them false gods by using Theos and Elohim there, respectively, in the Hebrew. So it's actually, a lot of times you'll see this in scripture. I did a post earlier in the week. Those that, are friends with me on Facebook. Sometimes Elohim can even refer to the fallen angels. or angels, good angels. So that's something we got to keep use the context that's being given in the verse. Okay, it's talking about spirits coming out of the ground. Okay, and most obviously Paul is inquiring of a sorceress, so obviously it'd be a demonic spirit, obviously. So that's just something I wanted to bring up there because there is a false doctrine going around that demons are one and the same as the idol itself, and demons don't exist. So just wanted to clear that up because that's important to understand. Okay. Let's see here. Okay. The woman said to him, "Behold, now you know that Saul has done." I found it interesting. Verse 9 of chapter 28 uses the word wizards in the Septuagint, so it seems like that's it's kind of interesting. Also in the Masoretic, I didn't notice that before. Okay, so in the modern English Bibles, okay, wizards. So it's talking about Saul put away these enchanters, these people with divining spirits. So I just thought that was interesting. Okay, so and you could see that in the prior verse too. So I won't go through that. We don't need to go through the prior verse. It's the same context. Let's see here. Verse 7 of 27. We got, and the number of the days that David dwelt in the country of the Philistines was 4 months versus a full year in 4 months. So I just, you got to crack up when the Masoretic text, differs from the Septuagint, such a huge gap when you talk about genealogies and time periods. I find that funny. I really do. Got to have a sense of humor with this stuff. Anyway, let's see here. David dwelt with Anchis, he and his men, each with his family, and David and both his wives, Akinam, the Jezreelitess. Again, we talked already about that, so we don't need to expound upon that. All right, let's go to chapter 26, verse 14. I thought something was interesting there. Okay, and let's see here. David called to the people and spoke to Abner, saying, "With you not answer and Abner." Okay, I don't know what. Who are you that callest? Oh, this is why. I found it interesting that the Masoretic text adds to the sovereign or to the king. So I don't know. I guess with your preference there, you could say maybe the Masoretic, the modern Masoretic, is correct in that verse. Who knows? I really don't know. I personally don't think to the king has to be added there. I mean, you can just use the context of the chapter. But anyway, thought that was interesting. Verse 8 of this same chapter, we have Dave and Abiasas said, "Oh, I thought this was interesting that the Septuagint indicates Yahuwah should be here, and the Masoretic has Elohim." So I thought that was a little interesting that the Septuagint actually is more pro Tetragrammaton sometimes than the Masoretic. So thought that was pretty interesting, especially if you go to the Apostolic Bible Polyglot here. Okay, it will actually have it in all caps in that verse. Let's see here. What is that? Verse 8. Okay. See, all caps, Lord. So that kurios there is supposed to be Yahuwah, and then you have God there, which in the Hebrew would be Elohim, Elohim. So just thought that was interesting there. Let me see. I think that's about it. There was I think I already went through. Let me just make sure. I got 2 notes from chapter 30, and then we can move on here. Okay, so, and of course my e-sword wants to be stupid right now. What else is new? Okay. All right. Chapter 30, 17. Chapter 30, verse 17, I meant to say. All right. All right. Let me see what we got here. Okay. And we're almost there. Yeah. He struck them from the morning star. I don't know where they're doing that. Oh, okay. Yeah, okay. until evening. Now it should probably say morning till evening. The word for word Septuagint, like the Brens will say morning. I thought it was interesting here because the Masoretic has you believe it's only a half a night, or whatever. It's only the evening hours here, twilight until evening, which doesn't make sense because evening is before twilight. So either that must be a translator issue there because that doesn't make any logical sense. Anyone that knows about the night hours, evening comes before twilight. Twilight's actually halfway from evening to darkness. So that's definitely a translator issue. But either way, the Masoretic would have you believe that it's only the night hours. It's only like half, I guess you could say, only 12 hours there. But then you have from morning till the evening. So I guess it's still 12 hours, but it's like weird. It's like two different times of the day. You got evening to twilight. Actually, let me correct myself here. I don't even think that would be a full 12 hours. You're talking about, basically a transition period. You're talking about, evening, usually in scriptures referring to sunset. Okay. You got from sunset to twilight. That's a very short gap of time. Versus the Septuagint saying he went from he smote them from morning till evening. So honestly, I'll leave it up to you to decide which makes more sense, which version of that. Yep, go ahead, Gibson's. Go ahead.
I don't know how this helps or who this will help, but there's two verses in the New Testament that describe someone that's still dark out before the light being morning. So morning in scripture does sometimes include before it's light out. So while it is yet dark is the phrase in two verses I'm thinking of. One with Mary Magdalene on the first day of the week while it was yet dark in the morning. So it was already the next day, but it was still dark out. And then there was Messiah getting up. I think it was Messiah getting up while it was yet dark.
Yeah.
In the morning. And so there was no light or transition period quite yet. So there must be some overlap of complete darkness and not just the transition at least. So at least, so when I heard that, it made me have to refigure how things kind of work. Cause I always thought morning was the time when you could see the light, but not the sun, you know how you get up before the sun comes over the horizon and you can see.
Technically there is, scientifically, brother, to add to your point, there is science that proves the Bible on that concept. Like I used to have to get up very early in the morning and it would still be kind of dark when going to work.
Sense.
So it's not going to be light until a certain part of the morning. It's not that the morning starts when it's light out. I think that's our misconception, is that, like you said.
It's one of mine.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so maybe that has something to do with it. Still, it's very weird that, I don't know, the whole concept of twilight to evening, that definitely seems that it must be a translator issue. That's the only thing I can think of.
Twilight's morning. Twilight, I believe, isn't it morning and evening? It's twixt the light.
From what I looked at, twilight is supposed to be a transition period between sunset and complete darkness, supposedly. That's what I've seen online.
Dusk and darkness.
Like between dusk and darkness.
Okay.
So that's why I'm getting confused by the Masoretic here. I'm like, whoa, what the heck? Like, that's a very short period of time for him to do all that. I don't know. I mean, it's possible, but I don't know. It depends on how many people he's smoting. I mean, that. But you did have a good point, Brother Jeff. That is good to note that morning doesn't mean that morning's going to start when the light is out. The morning does start when it's technically still dark out. Yeah.
That's right.
And I've noticed that if you have a job at 4 or 5 in the morning, depend on where you are on the earth, it's still going to be dark sometimes at that time in the morning. Mm-hmm. So it's still very early in the morning from what I've just scientifically observed when I've had to have early jobs. That is true. You're literally waking up in the start of dawn, and It's actually still dark out. The sun's not even out yet. It's actually, it still looks like it's nighttime actually. So early, it depends on how early in the morning you're talking about. If you're talking about like 1 to 4, that's usually when it's like still dark. Usually, sunrise for most people, it shouldn't happen until like 5, 6 a.m. for most of the year. Um, yeah. So anyway, that was a good point, brother Jeff. That was a really good point. So yeah, and that's just a misconception we've had just by our Gregorian calendar and all that nonsense. So that was a very good point. Let's see, Sister Josie, thank you for being so patient.
Oh, okay. Well, it's
Thank
okay.
you. Let's see, could you read 2 Samuel chapter 1 to chapter 7 for us?
Sure. Okay, here we go. And it came to be after the death of Shaul, when David had returned from striking the Amalekites, that David remained 2 days in Chishlag. And it came to be on the third day that, see, a man came out of the camp from Shaul with his garments torn and dust on his head. And it came to be, when he came to David, that he fell to the ground and did obes- obeisance. Obeisance. And David said to him, from where do you come? And he said to him, I have escaped from the camp of Israel. And David said to him, what was the matter? Please inform me. And he said, the people have fled from the battle, and also many of the people have fallen and are dead. And Shaul and Jehonathan, his son, are dead too. And David said to the young man who informed him, how do you know that Shaul and Jehonathan, his son, are dead? And the young man who informed him said, by chance I was on Mount Gilboa and saw Shaul leaning on his spear, and see, the chariots and horsemen followed hard after him. And when he looked behind him, he saw me and called to me, and I answered, here I am. And he said to me, who are you? So I answered him, I am an Amalek. And he said to me, please stand over me and put me to death, for agony has seized me, but my life is still in me. So I stood beside him and put him to death, for I knew he would not live after he had fallen. And I took the diadem that was on his head and the bracelet that was in his arm, and have brought them here to my master. And David took hold of his garments and tore them, and also all the men who were with them. And they mourned and wept and fasted until the evening for Shaul and Jehonathan, his son, and for the people of Yah and for the house of Israel, because they had fallen by the sword. Then David asked the young man who informed him, where are you from? And he answered, I am the son of a sojourner, an Amalek. And David said to him, how was it you were not afraid to stretch out your hand to destroy the anointed of Yah? And David called one of the young men and said, draw near and fall on me. And he struck him so that he died. And David said to him, your blood is on your own head, for your own mouth has witnessed against you, saying, I myself have put to death the anointed of Yah. Then David lamented with this lamentation over Shaul and over Jehonathan, his son, and he ordered the bow to be taught to the children of Yehudah. See, it is written in the book of Yashar. The splendor of Israel is slain on your high places. How the mighty have fallen. Declare it not in Gath. Proclaim it not in the streets of Ashkelon. Lest the daughters of the Philistines rejoice, lest the daughters of the uncircumcised exult. Mountains of Gilboa, no dew or rain be upon you, nor fields of the offerings. And For there the shield of the mighty lay rejected, the shield of Shaul not anointed with oil. From the blood of the slain, from the fat of the mighty, the bow of Jehonathan did not turn back, and the sword of Shaul did not return empty. Shaul and Jehonathan were beloved and pleasant in their lives, and in their death they were not parted. They were swifter than eagles, they were stronger than lions. Daughters of Israel, weep over Shaul, who wrapped you in scarlet with finery, who decked your robes with ornaments of gold. How the mighty have fallen in the midst of the battle. Jehonathan was slain in your high places. I am distressed for you, my brother Jehonathan. You have been very pleasant to me. Your love to me was wondrous, surpassing the love of women. How the mighty have fallen, and the weapons of battle perish.
There.
I'm sorry, what did you say?
No, I was asking, are you all right? Because you got cut out like mid sentence.
Oh, no, I'm fine. Are you going to expound or should I keep going?
You can keep going.
Okay. And it came to be afterwards that David inquired of Yah, saying, do I go up to any of the cities of Yehudah? And Yah said to him, go up. And David said, where should I go up? And he said, to Hebron. And David went up there, as well as his two wives, Ahinoam, hold on 1 second, the Yezreelites, and Abigail, the widow of Nabal the Carmelite. And David brought up the men who were with him, each man with his household, and they dwelt in the cities of Hebron. And the men of Yehudah came and anointed David sovereign over the house of Yehudah there. They also reported to David, saying, the men of Yabesh Gilad are they who buried Shaul. David then sent messengers to the men of Yabesh Galad and said to them, you are blessed of Yah, for you have sworn this loving commitment to your master, to Shaul, that you buried him. And now Yah, show loving commitment and truth to you, and I am also going to do you good, because you have done this deed. And now let your hands be strengthened and be brave, for your master Shaul is dead, and also the house of Yehudah has anointed me sovereign over them. But Abner, son of Ner, commander of the army of Shaul, took Ishbosheth, the son of Shaul, and brought him over to Mahanaim, and set him up to the reign over Gilad, and over the Asherites, and over Israel, and over Ephraim, and over Benjamin, and over all Israel. Ishbosheth, son of Shaul, was 40 years old when he began to reign over Israel, and he reigned 2 years. Only the house of Yehudah followed David. And the time that David was sovereign in Hebron over the son of Yehudah was 7 years and 6 new moons. And Abner, son of Ner, and the servants of Ishbosheth, son of Shaul, went out from Mahanaim to Gibeon. And Joab, son of Tishiruyah, and the servants of David went out and met them by the pool of Gibeon, and they sat down, one on one side of the pool and the other on the other side of the pool. And Abner said to Joab, let the young men now rise and compete before us. And Joab said, let them rise. And they rose and went over by number, 12 from Benjamin, followers of Ishbosheth, son of Shaul, and 12 from the servants of David. And each man took hold of his opponent by the head and thrust his sword in his opponent's side, and they fell down together. Wow. So that place was called the Field of Sharp Swords, which is in Gibeon. And the battle was fierce that day. And Abner and the men of Israel were smitten before the servants of David. And there were 3 sons of Teshuruyah there, Joab and Abishai and Ashael. And Ashael was light on his feet as one of the gazelles in the field. And Ashael pursued Abner, and going, he did not turn aside to the right or to the left from following Abner. And Abner looked behind him and said, "Are you Ashael?" And he answered, "I am." And Abner said to him, "Turn aside to your right hand or to your left, and lay hold on one of the young men, and take his armor for yourself." But Ashael would not turn aside from following him. And Abner again said to Ashael, "Turn aside from following me. Why should I strike you to the ground? How then could I face your brother Joab?" But he refused to turn aside, and Abner struck him with the blunt end of the spear in the stomach. So the spear came out of his back, and he fell down there and died on the spot. And it came to be that as many as came to the place where Ashael fell down and died stood still. And Joab and Abishai pursued Abner, and the sun was going down, and they came to the hill of Ammah, which overlooks Giah by the ways of the wilderness of Gibeon. And the children of Benjamin gathered together behind Abner, and became a single company, and took their stand on top of a hill. And Abner called to Joab and said, "Should the sword devour forever? Do you not know that it is bitter in the latter end? And when are you going to say to the people to turn back from pursuing their brothers?" And Joab said, "As Elohim lives, if you had not spoken, then all the people would have given up pursuing their brothers only the next morning." Joab then blew with a shofar, and all the people halted and pursued Israel no further, nor did they fight any more. And Abner and his men went on all that night through the desert plain, and passed over the Jordan, and went through all Bithron. And they came to Mahanaim, and Joab turned back from pursuing Abner. And when he had gathered all the people together, there were missing of David's servants 19 men and Ashael. But the servants of David had stricken of Benjamin and Abner's men 360 men who died. And they brought Ashael and buried him in his father's burial site, which was Bethlehem. And Joab and his men went all night, and they came to Hebron at daybreak. Chapter 3. And the fighting between the house of Shaul and the house of David was long drawn out. But David was going on and was strong, and the house of Shaul was going on and was weak. And sons were born to David in Hebron, and his firstborn was Amnon by Ahinoam the Yezreelitess, and his second Kilab by Abigail, the widow of Nabal the Carmelite, and the third Absalom, son of Maacah, the daughter of Talmai, sovereign of Geshur, and the fourth Adonijah, Adonijah, son of Haggith, and the fifth Shephatiah, son of Abital, and the sixth Yitream by David's wife Eglah. These were born to David in Hebron. And it came to be, while there was fighting between the house of Shaul and the house of David, that Abner was strengthening himself in the house of Shaul. And Shaul had a concubine whose name was Ritzpah, daughter of Ayah. And Ishbosheth said to Abner, "Why have you gone into my father's concubine?" And Abner was very displeased at the words of Ishbosheth and said, Am I a dog's head that belongs to Yehudah, that I show loving commitment to the house of Shaul your father, to his brothers, and to his friends today, and have not let you fall into the hand of David, that you charge me today with a sin concerning this woman? Elohim does so to Abner, and more also, if I do not do for David as Yah has sworn to him, to cause the reign to pass over from the house of Shaul, and to raise up the throne of David over Israel and over Yehudah from Dan to Beersheba. And he was unable to answer Abner another word because he feared him. And Abner sent messengers on his behalf to David, saying, Whose is the land? Saying also, Make your covenant with me, and see, my hand is with you to bring all Israel to you. And David said, Good, I make a covenant with you. Only one matter I am asking of you. You do not see my face unless you first bring Michal, daughter of Shaul, when you come to see my face. David then sent messengers to Ishbosheth, son of Shaul, saying, Give me my wife Michal, to whom I became engaged for 100 foreskins of the Philistines. Gross. And Ishbosheth sent and took her from her husband, from Paltiel, son of Laish. But her husband went with her to Baruim, going on and weeping behind her. And Abner said to him, Go, turn back. And he turned back. And Abner had a word with the elders of Israel, saying, In time past you were seeking for David to be sovereign over you, and now do it. For Yah has spoken of David, saying, By the hand of my servant David, I saved my people Israel from the hand of the Philistines and the hand of all their enemies. And Abner also spoke in the hearing of Benjamin, and Abner also went to speak in the hearing of David in Hebron all that seemed good to Israel and all the house of Benjamin. And Abner and 20 men with him came to David at Hebron. And David made a feast for Abner and the men who were with him. And Abner said to David, let me arise and go and gather all Israel to my master the sovereign, and let them make a covenant with you, and you shall reign over all that your being desires. And David sent Abner away, and he went in peace. And see, the servants of David and Joab came from a raid and brought much spoil with them. But Abner was not with David in Hebron, for he had sent him away, and he had gone in peace. And Joab and all the army that was with him came, and they reported to Joab, saying, Abner, son of Ner, came to the sovereign, and he sent him away, and he has gone in peace. And Joab went to the sovereign and said, What have you done? See, Abner has come to you. Why is it that you sent him away, and he has already gone? You know that Abned, son of Ned, came to deceive you, to know you're going out and you're coming in, and to know all that you are doing. Joab then left David, and he sent messengers after Abned, who brought him back from the well of Sirah. But David did not know it. The Abned returned to Hebron, and Joab took him aside in the gate to speak with him privately, and there struck him in the stomach, so that he died for the blood of Ashael his brother. And when David heard it afterwards, he said, My reign and I are guiltless before Yah forever of the blood of Abned, son of Ned. Let it rest on the head of Joab and all his father's house, and let there never fail to be in the house of Joab one who has a discharge or is a leper, or who is taking hold of a staff or falls by the sword, or who lacks bread. So Joab and Ashbashai, his brother, killed Abner because he had killed their brother Ashael at Gibeon in the battle. And David said to Joab and to all the people who were with him, Tear your garments, gird yourselves with sackcloth, and mourn for Abner. And sovereign David followed the coffin. And they buried Abner in Hebron, and the sovereign lifted up his voice and wept at the burial site of Abner, and all the people wept. And the sovereign sang a lament over Abner and said, Should Abner die as a fool dies? Your hands were not bound, nor your feet put in shackles. As one falls before sons of evil, so you fell. And all the people wept over him again. And all the people came to cause David to eat food while it was still day. But David swore, saying, Elohim, do so to me, and more also, if I taste bread or whatever else till the sun goes down. And all the people took note of it, and it was good in their eyes, since whatever the sovereign did was good in the eyes of all the people. And all the people and all Israel knew that day that it had not been the sovereign's intent to kill Abned, son of Ned. The sovereign also said to his servants, Do you not know that a prince and a great one has fallen in Israel today? And I am weak today, though anointed sovereign. And these men, the sons of Teshurah, are too harsh for me. Let Yah repay the evildoer according to his evil. Wow. Okay. Am I on 4 now? I just lost my place. And the son of Shaul, 4, right? And the son of Shaul heard that Abned had died in Hebron, and he lost heart, and all Israel was troubled. And the son of Shaul had 2 men, commanders of bands, and the name of one was Baanah, and the name of the other Rechab, and sons of Rimmon, the Beorhorite of the children of Benjamin. For Bereroth was also reckoned to Benjamin, because of Berothites fled to Gittayim, and have been sojourners there until this day. Now Jehonathan, son of Shaul, had a son who was lame in his feet. He was 5 years old when the news about Shaul and Jehonathan came from Yisrael, and his nurse took him up and fled. And it came to be, as she hurried to flee, that he fell and became lame. And his name was Mephibosheth. So the sons of Rimmon and So the sons of Rimmon, the Birer Ohite, Rekab, and Baanah went and came at about the heat of the day to the house of Ishbosheth, who was laying on his bed at noon. And they came into the midst of the house to fetch wheat, and they struck him in the stomach. And Rekab and Baanah his brother escaped. Thus they came into the house when he was laying on his bed in his bedroom, and they struck him and slew him and beheaded him. And they took his head and went the way of the desert plain all night, and brought the head of Ishbosheth to David at Hebron, and said to the sovereign, See the head of Ishbosheth, the son of Shaul, your enemy, who sought your life. So Yah has given my master the sovereign vengeance on Shaul and his seed this day. And David answered Rechab and Baanah his brother, sons of Rimmon the Beohite, and said to them, As Yah lives, who has ransomed my life out of all distress? When someone reported to me, saying, See, Shaul is dead, and he was a bearer of good news in his own eyes, and then took hold of him and killed him in Tishlag, which was the reward I gave him for his news. How much more when wrong men have killed a righteous man in his own house on his bed, should I not require his blood at your hand and remove you from the earth? And David commanded his young men, and they killed them, and cut off their hands and feet, and hanged them by the pool in Hebron. And they took the head of Ishbosheth and buried in the burial site of Avned in Hebron. Wow.
Oh, sis, just a request. Um, would you mind saying Yahuwah's full name instead of
Oh,
his?
okay.
Okay, just a request.
Okay. No worries.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay. Let me take a drink of water because that was a lot.
Yeah, it was.
All those names, and wow, it's just so bloody. And chapter 5. And all the tribes of Israel came to David at Hebron and spoke, saying, Look, we are your bone and your flesh. Formerly, when Shaul was sovereign over us, you were the one who led Israel out and brought them in. And Yahuwah said to you, Shepherd my people Israel, and be ruler over Israel. And all the elders of Israel came to the sovereign at Hebron, and sovereign David made a covenant with them at Hebron before Yahuwah. And they anointed David sovereign over Israel. David was 30 years old when he began to reign, and he reigned 40 years. In Hebron, he reigned over Yehudah 7 years and 6 new moons, and in Jerusalem, he reigned 33 years over all Israel and Yehudah. And the sovereign and his men went to Jerusalem against the Jebusites, the inhabitants of the land, and they spoke to David, saying, Except you take away the blind and the lame, you are not going to come in here. Thinking, David is not going to come in here. But David captured the stronghold of Tizion, the city of David. And David said on that day, Anyone who strikes the Jebusites, let him go by the water shaft and take the lame and the blind, who are hated by David's being. That is why they say, The blind and the lame do not come into the house. And David dwelt in the stronghold and called it the city of David. And David built all around from the Millo and inward. And David went on and became great, and Yahuwah, Elohim of hosts, was with him. Now Hiram, sovereign of Tizor, sent messengers to David, and cedar trees, and carpenters, and masons, and they built a house for David. And David knew that Yahuwah had established him as sovereign over Israel, and that he exalted his reign because of his people Israel. And David took more concubines and wives from Jerusalem after he had come from Hebron, and more sons and daughters were born to David. And these were the names of those born to him in Jerusalem: Shammua, and Shobab, and Nathan, and Shelomo, and Yibhar, and Elishua, and Nepheg, and Yaphiah, and Elishama, and Eliada, and Eliphelet. And the Philistines heard that they had anointed David sovereign over Israel. And all the Philistines went up to search for David. But David heard and went down to the stronghold. And the Philistines came and spread themselves out in the valley of Rephaim. And David inquired of Yahuwah, saying, Do I go up against the Philistines? Do you give them into my hand? And Yahuwah said to David, Go up, for I shall certainly give the Philistines into your hand. And David came to Baal Beretzim, and David struck them there. And he said, Yahuwah has broken through my enemies before me, like a breakthrough of water. So he called the name of that place Baal Beretzim. And they left their images there, and David and his men took them away. And the Philistines again came up and were spread out in the valley of Rephaim. And when David inquired of Yahuwah, he said, Do not go up, turn around behind them, and you shall come up upon them in front of the mulberry trees. And it shall be, when you hear the sound of stepping in the tops of the mulberry trees, then act promptly. For then Yahuwah shall go out before you to strike the camp of the Philistines. And David did so, as Yahuwah commanded him, and smote the Philistines from Geba as far as Gezer. Chapter 6. Now David again gathered all the chosen men of Israel, 30,000. And David rose up and went with all the people who were with him from Baal Yehuda to bring up from there the ark of Elohim, that is called by the name Yahuwah of hosts, who dwells between the cherubim. And they placed the ark of Elohim on a new wagon and brought it from the house of Abinadab, which was on the hill. And Uzzah and Ayo, sons of Abinadab, were leading the new wagon. And they brought it from the house of Abinadab, which was on the hill, with the ark of Elohim. And Ayo was walking before the ark. And David and all the house of Israel were dancing before Yahuwah with all instruments of fir wood, with lyres, and with harps, and with tambourines, and with sistrums, and with cymbals. And when they came to the threshing floor of Nakon, Uzzah reached out toward the ark of Elohim and took hold of it, for the oxen stumbled. And the wrath of Yahuwah burned against Uzzah, and Elohim struck him there for the fault, and he died there by the ark of Elohim. And David was displeased because Yahuwah had broken out against Uzzah, and he called the name of the place Peritz Uzzah until this day. And David was afraid of Yahuwah on that day, and said, How shall the ark of Yahuwah come to me? And David would not move the ark of Yahuwah with him into the city of David. But David turned it aside to the house of Obed Edom the Gittite. And the ark of Yahuwah remained in the house of Obed Edom, the Gittite 3 new moons, and Yahuwah blessed Obed Edom and all his house. And it was reported to sovereign David, saying, Yahuwah has blessed the house of Obed Edom and all that he has because of the ark of Elohim. David then went out and brought up the ark of Elohim from the house of Obed Edom to the city of David with rejoicing. And it came to be, when those bearing the ark of Yahuwah had gone 6 steps, that he slaughtered bulls and fatted sheep. And David danced before Yahuwah with all his might, and David was wearing a linen shoulder garment. Thus David and all the house of Israel brought up the ark of Yahuwah with shouting and with a voice of a shofar. And it came to be, when the ark of Yahuwah came into the city of David, that Michal, daughter of Shaul, looked through a window and saw sovereign David leaping and dancing before Yahuwah, and she despised him in her heart. So they brought the ark of Yahuwah in and set it in its place in the midst of the tent that David had pitched for it. And David brought ascending offerings before Yahuwah and peace offerings. And when David had finished bringing ascending offerings and peace offerings, he blessed the people in the name of Yahuwah of hosts. And he appointed to all the people, to all the crowd of Israel, from men even to women, to each one a loaf of bread and a measure and a cake of raisins. And all the people left, each one to his house. And David returned to bless his household. And Michal, the daughter of Shaul, came out to meet David and said, How esteemed was the sovereign of Israel today, uncovering himself today in the eyes of the female servants of his servants, as one of the foolish ones shamelessly uncovers himself. So David said to Michal, Before Yahuwah, who chose me instead of your father and all his house, commanded me to be ruler over the people of Yahuwah over Israel. So I dance before Yahuwah, and I shall be even more slight than this, and shall be humble in my own eyes. But as for the female servants of whom you have spoken, by them I am esteemed. And Michal, the daughter of Shaul, had no children to the day of her death. Oh, wow. Okay. Chapter 7. And it came to be, when the sovereign was dwelling in his house, and Yahuwah had given him rest from all his enemies all around, that the sovereign said to Nathan the prophet, See now, I am dwelling in a house of cedar, but the ark of Elohim dwells within curtains. And Nathan said to the sovereign, Go do all that is in your heart, for Yahuwah is with you. And it came to be that night that the word of Yahuwah came to Nathan, saying, Go and say to my servant David, Thus said Yahuwah, Would you build a house for me to dwell in? For I have not dwelt in a house since the time that I brought the children of Israel up from Mitzrayim, even to this day, but have moved about in a tent and in a dwelling place. Wherever I have walked with all my children of Israel, have I ever spoken a word to anyone from the tribes of Israel, whom I commanded to shepherd my people Israel, saying, Why have you not built me a house of cedar? And now say to my servant David, Thus said Yahuwah of hosts, I took you from the pasture, from following the flock, to be ruler over my people, over Israel. And I have been with you wherever you have gone, and have cut off all your enemies from before you, and have made you a great name, like the name of the great ones who are on the earth. And I shall appoint a place for my people Israel, and shall plant them, and they shall dwell in a place of their own, and no longer be afraid. Neither shall the children of wickedness oppress them again, as at the first, even from the day I commanded rulers over my people Israel, and I have caused you to rest from all your enemies. And Yahuwah has declared to you that he would make you a house. When your days are filled and you rest with your fathers, I shall raise up your seed after you, who comes from your inward parts, and shall establish his reign. He does build a house for my name, and I shall establish the throne of his reign forever. I am to be his father, and he is my son. And if he does perversely, I shall reprove him with the rod of men and with the blows of the sons of men. But my loving commitment does not turn aside from him, as I turned it aside from Shaul, who I removed from before you. And your house and your reign are to be steadfast forever before you. Your throne is established forever. According to all these words and according to all this vision, so Nathan spoke to David. And sovereign David went in and sat before Yahuwah, and he said, Who am I, O Master Yahuwah? And what is my house that you have brought me this far? And yet this was a small matter in your eyes, O Master Yahuwah. And you have also spoken of your servant's house for a great while to come. And is this the Torah of man, O Master Yahuwah? And what more does David say to you? For you, Master Yahuwah, know your servant. Because of your word, according to your own heart, you have done all this greatness to make it known to your servant. You are great indeed, O Master Yahuwah, for there is none like you, and there is no Elohim but you, according to all that we have heard with our ears. And who is like your people, like Israel, the one nation on the earth whom Elohim went to ransom for himself as a people, to make for himself a name, and to do for you greatness and awesome deeds for your land before your people, whom you ransom for yourself, Mitzrayim, from the nations and their mighty ones? And you have established for yourself your people Israel as your own people forever, and you, Yahuwah, have become their Elohim. And now, O Yahuwah Elohim, the word which you have spoken concerning your servant and concerning his house, establish it forever, and do as you have said. And let your name be great forever, saying, Yahuwah of hosts is the Elohim over Israel. And let the house of your servant David be established before you. For you, O Yahuwah of hosts, the Elohim of Israel, have revealed this to your servant, saying, I build you a house. Therefore your servant has taken heart to pray this prayer to you. And now, O Master Yahuwah, you are Elohim, and your words are true, and you have spoken this goodness to your servant. And now be pleased to bless the house of your servant, to be before you forever. For you, O Master Yahuwah, have spoken it, and with your blessing, let the house of your servant be blessed forever.
Thank you, sis. Sorry about that delay there. My computer's giving me a little issues here trying to unmute myself. All right. Wow. lot of stuff here.
A lot to unpack, right? Wow.
Yeah, chapter 7 alone. So this seems to be the beginning of him choosing David, David's son, to build him a house, a temple, and that's one of the main things I took away from the last chapter you just read. Let's see here. What I thought was interesting in verse 5 here, in chapter 7 of the Septuagint, actually, he's telling David, "You won't build me a house." And I find it interesting that Masoretic's actually posing it as a question, which is very weird because we know later on in Chronicles, as the second witness, the book of Second Chronicles, Yahuwah explains to Solomon after David's dead, he's like, "I didn't choose your father to build me a house because of all the wars and all that. I chose you." So the Septuagint would actually give more of a congruency to the story that Yahuwah is not contradicting himself. Because you could technically, if you take it one way in the Masoretic, it would have it saying like, "Haven't I told you to build me a house to dwell in, or would you build me a house to dwell in?" Question mark. It has it almost posed as a question mark, a question rather than a statement. "I have not chosen you to build me a house. You know, you shall not build me a house to dwell in," which would go along with the rest of the story in context. As you get on to when Solomon becomes king, and Yahuwah actually chooses him and not David to build his house. So I just thought that was interesting. What I thought was interesting too is where Yahuwah says, "I will remove my mercy from you" in verse 15 here. It's funny because Yahuwah in the Masoretic text, it specifically mentions, "Like I have turned aside from Saul," or which I thought was interesting. So the Masoretic text is making it look like Yahuwah is only that he's only pointing out Saul as the only person he has turned his, spirit from. But in the Septuagint, it says it makes it plural instead of singular, and it says "from those," and it's general, meaning anyone that I've turned from because of their wickedness. So I kind of found it funny that the Masoretic text just wants to single out Saul there and turn it into a specific context rather than a general context that "I won't take away my mercy from you like those I have." So I thought that was kind of interesting. Verse 10, I thought was pretty important to show that we don't pick a place where Yahuwah's name dwells, he does. Thought that was important to point out. "I will point a place for my people, not us." Yeah, so thought that was pretty important. Um, if we go back to the previous chapters here, like chapter 6, I think there was a lot more stuff to point out here. Let's see, 2 Samuel 6:15 talks about the voice of a shofar in the Masoretic. Septuagint says the sound of a trumpet.
Yeah.
So if you look at, and I'm kind of curious with what word that's being used there, because if the Greek word being used there is salpinx, then it's definitely a silver trumpet. So let me see here. I want to just see something real quick, very, very quick. Just change this to ABP. I didn't want to do that. Hold on. Let's take away one of these here. I need a three-way parallel. Oh, that only gives you the Greek, huh? Okay, so they don't have a Strong's thing. Okay. Never mind. Guess I would have to look at that on my eSword to see, because they don't have one that has Strong's, I don't think. It's either English or Greek only. So let me just try something real quick. I did want to see, I'm kind of curious, because multiple times I've noticed in 2 Samuel, trumpet is being translated for shofar. So I just want to see if that is correct. Let's go to King James with the Strongs here, and the Passock Bible Polyglot with the Strongs. Okay, we got 2 Samuel 6:15. It's one of the places. I'm just curious. And David, in the house of the ark of Yahuwah, with the sound of a trumpet. Yep, shofar. Salpinks. Yep. Salpinks. And what's interesting is that if you go to Numbers 10, the Hebrew word is not shofar there for that is the Hebrew equivalent of this salpinks. It's actually chatzosera, which means a literal silver trumpet. So kind of find it interesting that throughout this Septuagint, the majority of the time, this Greek word is being used as referring to the instrument they're using to blow or to sound before you to call an alarm, to go to war, to call the assembly. So just something to note. That the Hebrew version of the G4536 would be in Numbers 10, Chatzosera. So anyway, let's see here. I mean, I have a lot of notes here actually for chapter 6. Well, not a lot. I shouldn't say a lot. There's like 2 other cross references. Okay, verse 1 I thought was pretty interesting. 70,000. Again, it's weird here. It's like the numbers here are like so disparaging, not just with genealogies, but with I'll just go to a regular Jewish Masoretic here, JPS Tanakh. Okay, so 70,000, and then you got 30,000. Very strange. So it's talking about, I believe, in context, this is talking about the warriors, the soldiers David's bringing with him. It's very strange. There's about a 40,000 difference when you're looking at the numbers there, comparing the two. Let's go to verse 2 also. And then we'll go to the notes I have from chapter 5. Okay, let's see. Yahuwah of armies. Okay. Yep, that's just interesting. Talks about he's the one that sits between the cherubim, and you'll find that in other scriptures, and probably the Psalms portion we have to read still. You'll probably see that. I think that's a recurring theme in this week's Haftarah portion, is about Yahuwah is the one that dwells between the cherubim, talking about, his throne in heaven, his throne of esteem. Okay, so let's go to chapter 5 now. All right, so we're going to go to go to verse 22, chapter 5. Valley of the Rephaim, Valley of Giants. Thought that was pretty interesting. So it lets you know that the Septuagint is trying to let you know here the Hebrew word Rephaim literally means giants. Okay. So I thought that was interesting. Same thing with verse 18. We're not going to reiterate that because it's saying the same exact thing in verse 18. We'll go to verse 11 here. All right. Stonemasons. I like the fact that the Septuagint says stonemasons because I know a lot of our brothers and sisters that are truthers will kind of read too much into that verse there. They're like, oh, masons. No, it's not talking about that type of mason. I can assure you. It's not talking about that. It's not talking about a Freemason.
No, bricklayer.
Yeah.
Is what they're talking about.
But I'm just saying in the Masoretic, it doesn't specify, just as Mason. There's also people out there known as Freemasons that take the title that the stonemasons have, and they, they're like a weird satanic religion. So anyway, but the point of the matter is the Septuagint lets you know what type of mason this is. It literally says stone mason. So I think that's cool. All right. So, let's see here. If my stupid mouse would stop glitching, that would help. Okay, verse 10, I thought it was interesting that it says Elohim of hosts, or Elohim of heaven's armies, which is the Hebrew word in there would be Sabaoth, and the Greek says Almighty. So I find it interesting. If your translation actually uses Almighty, believe it or not, they would side with the Septuagint. So it's very interesting. Sometimes I've seen my mom's NIV will even say Almighty in the same verse that the Septuagint says Almighty, and other things that the NIV sometimes copies from the Septuagint. So I kind of find that interesting. Let's see here. Verse 8 of this same chapter, you have David, my soul, there are the blind, the lame. I found it interesting that the Masoretic just says he cannot come into the house. In the Septuagint says the house of Yahuwah in that verse. So I find it interesting they leave Yahuwah's name out of that verse in the Masoretic. I'm not surprised all too much, but I find it kind of interesting that they would leave it out in that verse. So Septuagint actually has kurios there, which would indicate the Tetragrammaton Yahuwah there. 2 Samuel 5 verse 5, I just have a note written. It's interesting if you look at the Septuagint and Masoretic side by side together. It's showing that a new moon indicates a new month. So I thought that was interesting. That's how we know we go by the moon for the months. Okay. Let's go to chapter 4 now. There's nothing else really in chapter 5 I wanted to touch on. Trying to do this as fast as possible, guys, because we still have Psalms to read. We got our apostolic Brit Hadashah, New Testament scriptures to read still, so I'm trying to do this as quickly as possible. Why is there no verse? Am I going crazy here? Okay, all right. I just can't read my own handwriting. That's part of the problem here. All right. So verse 7, the Septuagint says Western Road here. The Masoretic just says all night. So the way of their Araba all night, but it mentions nothing about maybe Araba is the Western Road. I don't know. Maybe I jumped the gun on that one, but it's kind of interesting. Yeah, I guess Araba is what the Septuagint's calling the Western Road. Okay, never mind. I'll take correction on that. That's my bad on that. All right, let's go to chapter 3. Let's see here. Okay, so chapter 3, verse 35. Okay, chapter 3, verse 35, and all people assembled to weep for him, and all the people came to cause David to eat bread while it was yet day, and David swore, saying, Alua, do so to me, and more also, if I eat bread or anything else before the suns go down. So what's interesting here is, I wonder if this is saying that we should not be eating when we mourn. Because if you look at the context of the whole verse, it says to weep for him. So this is talking about mourning someone's death. And then David says, I will not eat until I won't eat before sunset. Sunset's Hebraically starts a day, right? So this seems to be some type of mourning or weeping where David is not allowing himself to eat. And I don't want to infer too much there, but maybe that's another study I would like to do is, and a topic I would like to dive into and just test is, are we supposed to eat or not eat when we mourn for people? And anyway, thought that was kind of interesting. I could be wrong. I could be reading too much into that. But anyway, but it seems like there's a significance of him waiting until the next day to eat. So either way. Let's see here. Chapter 3, verse 24. Okay. We got it talking about here. The Masoretic seems to lack out that it says going in peace. It just mentions this guy departing and he's gone. But it says in the Septuagint, it says he has departed in peace. So I thought that was interesting. let's see, chapter 2, we're going to go to now. Chapter 2, verse 32. Last verse here. Let's see, morning. Okay. Tomb of his father, Bethlehem. They took up a cell, buried him in a sepulcher, and went all night to morning. So I thought it was interesting that the Septuagint doesn't really mention Yobab there. So it just says that he went in peace. Oh no, that he went all night, and the morning rose upon them in Hebron. So anyway, so I just find it interesting. Yobab is mentioned there, and in the Septuagint he's not. So. Okay, so then LXX in same chapter here, verse 28. Again, we have the shofar here, and I just wonder if it's supposed to be. And hold on a second, I think my mom's getting a little hot here. Let me turn the heat down. All right. So now I want to look at this verse in verse 28 here, just real quick. And I'm just curious here. Okay, we got Sal Pizzo, so the sound of the trumpet. Interesting. But it's directly related to Salpinks. Um, then you got Salpinks right after it. So in the Masoretic, I'm assuming shofar, even though my mom's is translated correct as trumpet, it probably says shofar. I'm assuming in verse 28. Let me do King James with Strong's. Yeah. So again, all right, so verse 28. Yeah. So what's really weird, like I said before, you can do that your own study and your own research that into the concordances when you're looking at the Masoretic and Hebrew and the Koine Greek. But there seems to be an issue, or I would say conspiracy, by the Masoretes to change the Hebrew word in Numbers 10. And it's almost like that Hebrew word chatzosera, which literally means a physical, literal silver trumpet. It's like never used again. That word is never used again after in the Masoretic text. But that Greek equivalent to chatzosera, as you see here, is being used all throughout the Tanakh of the Septuagint. Very strange. Very strange. So, and usually, like I said before, and that's why that's probably, and really that's where people get the idea of the ram's horn. They look at the word curved horn, as you can see on the screen here in the definition. They make like a inference or assumption that a curved horn has to be a animal horn. Okay, so anyway, so but moving on, don't want to waste too much time on that. But that's just something to do your own study on your own time. Okay. LXX, I found it interesting that Yahuwah is here in verse 27 again versus Elohim. Kind of find that interesting. So the Septuagint would have the Tetragrammaton here. Okay. And again, verse 11 of chapter 2, just to state again, it's showing that a new moon is a new month. Once the new moon happens, you're in a new month. So just thought I would reference that. Okay. In verse 11. Okay. You know. Okay. So because the Kodesh, new moon. Okay. Month, Mane. Okay. So Mane is month in the Greek. Okay. And let's see here. Okay, I think that's about it because I don't have anything for chapter 1. So we're pretty much done here. Depending on how everyone's feeling right now, we already kind of took a minor break earlier. So I think we're going to try to power through here. Let me see here. So we are now up to Psalms 80 to 90. I think what I'll do here is see. I know Brother Jeff, Sister Zakaya, they haven't had a reading yet. Brother Joshua hasn't had a reading yet. Um, let's see here. Brother Jeff and Brother Joshua, do you want to split up Psalms 80 to 90? Okay, let me know if you can do that. If not, I will split it up with my mom and we could easily split that up.
I can do some here. Hold on just a second.
Sure.
Psalms. 80. 80. Oh, we're going to read about a conspiracy here, I think, if I'm not mistaken. 80 through 90 and 83. Okay. Psalms 80. I'll just start reading, okay? And you just I'll just read as much as I can, or feel like doing before my eyes go crossed. And
Okay. Yeah, no problem, bro. I understand.
let me pull out the Septuagint here. Okay. So my 80 actually is going to start in year 79-1, it looks like.
Let's see here. Let's fix this real quick. Get this off of the AVP. Something a little easier. Yeah, Complete Apostles Bible. There we go.
All right, you ready?
Yeah.
Psalms 80 is read from the Septuagint, and just keep in mind your difference where it starts. It looks like it's 79-1 for you. Okay, for the end, for alternate strains, a testimony of Asaph, a psalm concerning the Assyrian. Attend, O shepherd of Israel, who guides Joseph like a flock. You who sittest upon the cherubs, manifest thyself. Before Ephraim and Benjamin and Manasseh, stir up thy power and come to deliver us. Turn us, O Yahuwah, and cause thy face to shine, and we shall be delivered. O Yahuwah of hosts, how long art thou angry with the prayer of thy servant? Thou wilt feed us with bread of tears, and will cause us to drink tears by measure. Thou hast made us a strife to our neighbors, and our enemies have mocked at us. Turn us, O Yahuwah of hosts, and cause thy face to shine, and we shall be saved. Thou hast transplanted a vine out of Egypt. Thou hast cast out the heathen and planted it. Thou madest a way before it, and didst cause it to take root to strike. Its roots to strike, and the land was filled with it. Its shadow covered the mountains, its shoots equally the goodly cedars. It sent forth its branches to the sea, and its shoots to the river. Wherefore hast thou broken down its hedge, while all that pass by way pluck it? The boar out of the wood has laid it waste, and the wild beast has devoured it. O Yahuwah of hosts, turn, we pray thee. Look on us from heaven, and behold and visit this vine, and restore that which thy right hand has planted, and look on the Son of Man, whom thou didst strengthen for thyself. It is burnt with fire and dug up. They shall perish at the rebuke of thy presence. Let thy hand be upon the man of thy right hand, and upon the Son of Man, whom thou didst strengthen for thyself. So will we not depart from thee. Thou shalt quicken us, and we will call upon thy name. Turn us, Yahuwah of hosts, and make thy face to shine, and we shall be saved. Go to the next one here. Interesting, they're telling him to do. For the end, a psalm for Asaph concerning the wine presses. Rejoice ye in Yahuwah our helper. Shout aloud to the Elohim of Jacob. Take a psalm and produce the timbrel, the pleasant psaltery with the harp. Blow the trumpet at the new moon in the glorious day of your feast. For this is an ordinance for Israel and a statute of the Elohim of Jacob. He made it to be a testimony in Joseph when he came forth out of the land of Egypt. He heard a language which he understood not. He removed his back from burdens, his hands slaved in making the baskets. Thou did call upon me in trouble, and I delivered thee. I heard thee in the secret place of the storm. I proved thee at the water of strife. Hear, O my people, and I will speak to thee, O Israel, and I will testify to thee, if thou wilt hearken to me. There shall be no new God in thee, neither shalt thou worship a strange God. For I am the Lord your Elohim, that brought you out of the land of Egypt. Open thy mouth wide, and I will fill it. But my people hearkened not to my voice, and Israel gave no heed to me. So I let them go after the ways of their own hearts. They will go on in their own ways. If my people had hearkened to me, if Israel had walked in my ways, I should have put down their enemies very quickly, and should have laid my hand upon those that afflicted them. Yahuwah's enemies should have lied to him, but their time shall be forever. That's an interesting one. And he fed them with the fat of wheat and satisfied them with honey out of the rock. Oh man, that's cool. Honey out of the rock. Yeah. It's a little Messiah for you. Okay, Psalms 82. A psalm for Asaph. Yahuwah stands in the assembly of angels, and in the midst of them will judge the angels. How long will you judge unrighteously and accept the persons of sinners? Judge the orphan and poor, do justice to the low and needy, rescue the needy, and deliver the poor out of the hand of the sinner. They know not nor understand. They walk on in darkness. All the foundations of the earth shall be shaken. I have said, ye are gods, and all are children of the Most High, but you will die as men and fall as one of the princes. Arise, O Yahuwah, judge the earth, for thou shalt inherit all the nations. Psalm 83 from the Septuagint. A song of a psalm for Asaph. O Yahuwah, who shall be compared to thee? Be not silent, neither be still, O Yahuwah. For behold, thine enemies have made a noise, and they that hate thee have lifted up the head. Against thy people they have craftily imagined a device, and have taken counsel against thy saints. They have said, come and let us utterly destroy them out of the nation, and let the name of Israel be remembered no more at all. For they have taken counsel together with one consent. They have made a confederacy against thee. Even the tents of the Idumeans and the Ishmaelites, Moab and the Agarenes, Gebal, Ammon, Amalek, the Philistines also, and them that dwell at Tyre. Yea, Azure too is come with them. They have become a help to the children of Lot. Do thou to them as to Madiam, and to Sisera as to Jabin at the brook of Kison. They were utterly destroyed at Endor. They became as dung for the earth. Make their princes as Oreb and Zeb and Zebi and Salmana, even all their princes. Who said, let us take to ourselves the altar of Yahuwah as inheritance? O my Yahuwah, make them as a wheel, as stubble before the face of the wind. As fire shall burn up a wood, as the flame may consume the mountains, so shalt thou persecute them with thy tempest, and trouble them in thine anger. Fill their faces with dishonor, so shall they seek thy name, O Yahuwah. Let them be ashamed and troubled forevermore. Yea, let them be confounded and destroyed. And let them know that thy name is Yahuwah, that thou alone art most high over all the earth. It was interesting. This last verse said, and let them know that thy name is Lord. It's funny. Okay, Psalm 84. For the end, a psalm for the sons of Korah concerning the wine presses. How amiable are thy tabernacles, Yahuwah of hosts. My soul longs and faints for the courts of Yahuwah. My heart and my flesh have exalted in the living Elohim. Yea, the sparrow has found himself a home, and the turtle dove a nest for herself, where she may lay her young, even thine altars, Yahuwah of hosts, my King and my Elohim. Blessed are they that dwell in the house. They will praise thee evermore.
Is it a Loa or
It doesn't matter. Everybody knows what I mean. Blessed is the man whose help is of thee, O Yahuwah. In his heart he has purposed to go up the valley of weeping to the place which he has appointed. For there the lawgiver will grant blessings. They shall go from strength to strength. Yahuwah, the Elohim of Elohims shall be seen in Sion. O Yahuwah of hosts, hear my prayer. Hearken, Elohim of Jacob. Behold, Yahuwah our defender, and look upon the face of thine anointed. For one day in thy courts is better than thousands. I would rather be abject in the house of Yahuwah than dwell in the tent of sinners. Oh my gosh. For Yahuwah loves mercy and truth. Yah will give grace and glory. Yahuwah will not withhold good things from them that walk in innocence. Yahuwah of hosts, blessed is the man that trusts in thee. Well, verse 10 is pretty strong, man. I'd rather be abject in the house of Yahuwah than dwell in the tents of sinners. All right. Psalm 85 from the Septuagint. For the end, a song for the sons of Korah. Yahuwah, thou hast taken pleasure in thy land. Thou hast turned back the captivity of Jacob. Thou hast forgiven thy people their transgressions. Thou hast covered all their sins. Thou hast caused all thy wrath to cease, and hast turned from thy fierce anger. Turn us, O Yahuwah, of our salvation, and turn thy anger away from us. Wouldest thou be angry with us forever, or wilt thou continue thy wrath from generation to generation? O Yahuwah, thou wilt turn and quicken us, and thy people shall rejoice in thee. Show us mercy, Yahuwah, and grant us salvation. I will hear what Yahuwah will say concerning me, for he shall speak peace to his people, and to his saints, and to those that turn their heart toward him. Moreover, his salvation is near them that fear him, that glory may dwell in our land. Mercy and truth are met together. Righteousness and peace have kissed each other. Truth has sprung out of the earth, and righteousness has looked down from heaven. For Yahuwah will give goodness, and our land shall yield her fruit. Righteousness shall not go before him. I'm sorry, I read that way wrong. Righteousness shall go before him, and shall set his steps in the way. 85. Psalms 86 from the Septuagint. A prayer of David. O Yahuwah, incline thine ear and hearken to me, for I am poor and needy. Preserve my soul, for I am set apart. Save thy servant, O Yahuwah, who hopes in thee. Pity me, O Yahuwah, for to thee will I cry all the day. Rejoice the soul of thy servant, for to thee, O Yahuwah, have I lifted up my soul. For you, Yahuwah, are kind and gentle and plenteous and mercy to all that call upon thee. Give ear to my prayer, O Yahuwah, and attend to the voice of my supplication. In the day of my trouble I cried to thee, for thou didst hear me. There is none like to thee, O Yahuwah, among the gods, and there are no works like to thy works. All nations whom thou hast made shall come and shall worship before thee, O Yahuwah, and shall glorify thy name. For thou art great and doest wonders. Thou art the only and great Elohim. Guide me, O Yahuwah, in thy way, and I will walk in your truth. Let my heart rejoice that I may fear thy name. I will give thee thanks, O Yahuwah, my Elohim, with all my heart, and I will glorify thy name forever. For thy mercy is great toward me, and thou hast delivered my soul from the lowest. Mine says hell for some reason. I know that's not correct.
It's a Greek. The Greeks used hell um as a Greek version of Sheol. It's just Sheol. They just
So
it's
it would be Hades to them.
Yeah, Hades and hell for whatever weird reason. This is where King Jimmy is like, he really did a bad job with his translation because he used hell for the lake of fire and Sheol at the same time. Hell's only supposed to be for Sheol. It's actually it's a Greek term to them that means underworld. Hades and hell mean the same thing. That's why you see in Revelations in the Greek New Testament it will say, Hades and Sheol follow death. The one horseman. It's basically the grave.
All right, yeah, I was just wondering which one he must have meant there. All right, oh Yahuwah, transgressors. Am I? Sorry, I'm blind. I don't have my contacts in. It's the Shabbat. Okay. O Yahuwah, transgressors have risen up against me, and an assembly of violent men have sought my life, and have not set thee before them. But you, Yahuwah, art compassionate and merciful, long-suffering and abundant in mercy and true. Look thou upon me, and have mercy upon me. Give thy strength to thy servant, and save the son of thine handmaid. Establish me a token for good, and let them that hate me see it and be ashamed, because thou, Yahuwah, hast helped me and comforted me. Psalm 87. A psalm of a song for the sons of Korah. His foundations are in the holy mountains. Yahuwah loves the gates of Zion Zion. Let's put the S in this one. More than all the tabernacles of Jacob. Glorious things have been spoken of thee, O city of Yahuwah. I will make mention of Rahab and Babylon to them that know me. Behold also the Philistines of Tyre and the people of the Ethiopians. These were born there. A man shall say, Sion is my mother, and such a man was born in her. And the highest himself has founded her. Yahuwah shall recount it in the writing of the people and of these princes that were born in her. The dwelling of all within thee is as the dwelling of those that rejoice. A song of a psalm for the sons of Korah for the end, upon Melech for responsive strains, of instruction of Ammon the Israelite. O Yahuwah of my salvation, I have cried by day and in the night before thee. Let my prayer come in before thee. Incline thine ear to my supplication, O Yahuwah. For my soul is filled with troubles, and my life has drawn nigh to Hades. I have been reckoned with them that go down to the pit. I became as a man without help. Free among the dead, as the slain ones cast out, who sleep in the tomb, whom thou rememberest no more, and they are rejected from thy hand. They laid me in the lowest pit, in the dark places, in the shadow of death. Thy wrath has pressed heavily upon me, and thou hast brought upon me all thy billows. Thou hast removed my acquaintance far from me. They have made me an abomination to themselves. I have been delivered up and have not gone forth. Mine eyes are dimmed from poverty, but I cried to thee, O Yahuwah. All the day I spread forth my hands to thee. Wilt thou work wonders for the dead, or shall physicians raise them up, that they shall praise thee? Shall anyone declare thy mercy in the tomb, and thy truth in destruction? Shall thy wonders be known in darkness, and thy righteousness in a forgotten land? But I cried to thee, O Yahuwah, and in the morning shall my prayer prevent thee. Wherefore, Yahuwah, dost thou reject my prayer, and turn thy face away from me? I am poor and in troubles from my youth, and having been exalted, I was brought low and into despair. The wrath has passed over me, and thy terrors have greatly disquieted me. They compassed me like water. All the days they beset me together. Thou hast put far from me every friend and mine acquaintances because of my wretchedness. Psalm 89, a psalm of instruction for Atham the Israelite. I will sing of thy mercies, Yahuwah, forever. I will declare thy truth with my mouth to all generations. For thou hast said, mercy shall be built up forever. Thy truth shall be established in the heavens. I made a covenant with my chosen ones. I swear unto David my servant, I will establish thy seed forever and build up thy throne to all generations. The heavens shall declare thy wonders, O Yahuwah, and thy truth in the assembly of the saints. For who in the heavens shall be compared to Yahuwah, and who shall be likened to Yahuwah among the sons of Yah? Hold on, that was a hard one. And who shall be likened to the Lord among the sons of God? Okay. God, Yahuwah is glorified in the council of the saints, great and terrible toward all that are round about him. O Yahuwah of hosts, who is like unto thee? Thou art mighty, O Yahuwah, and thy truth is round about thee. Thou rulest the power of the sea, and thou calmest the tumult of its waves. Thou hast, oh wow, that's a good one. That last one. For showing on this. Sorry. Thou hast brought down the proud as one that is slain, and with the arm of thy power thou hast scattered thine enemies. The heavens are thine, the earth is thine. Thou hast founded the world and the fullness of it. Thou hast created the north and the west. Thabor and Hermon shall rejoice in thy name. Thine is the mighty arm. Let thy hand be strengthened. Let thine right hand be exalted. Justice and judgment are the establishment of thine throne. Mercy and truth shall go before thy face. Blessed is the people that know the joyful sound. They shall walk, O Yahuwah, in the light of thy countenance. And in thy name shall they rejoice all the day, and in thy righteousness shall they be exalted. For thou art the boast of their strength, and in thy good pleasure shall our horn be exalted. For our help is of Yahuwah and of the Holy One of Israel, our King. Then thou spokest in a vision to thy children and said, I have laid help upon a mighty one. I have laid help on a mighty one. I have exalted one chosen out of my people. I have found David my servant. I have anointed him by my holy mercy. For my hand shall support him, and my arm shall strengthen him. The enemy shall have no advantage against him, and the son of transgression shall not hurt him again. And I will hew down his foes before him, and put to flight those that hate him. But my truth and my mercy shall be with him, and in my name shall his horn be exalted. And I will set his hand in the sea, and his right hand in the rivers. He shall call upon me, saying, Thou art my Father, my Elohim, and the helper of my salvation. And I will make him my firstborn, higher than the kings of the earth. And I will keep my mercy for him forever, and my covenant shall be firm with him. And I will establish his seed forever and ever, and his throne as the days of heaven. If his children should forsake my law and walk not in my judgments, if they should profane my ordinances and not keep my commandments, I will visit their transgressions with a rod and their sins with scourges. But my mercy I will not utterly remove from him, nor wrong my truth. Neither will I by any means profane my covenant, and I will not make void the things that proceed out of my lips. Once have I sworn by my holiness that I will not lie to David. His seed shall endure forever, and his throne as the sun before me, and as the moon that is established forever, and as the faithful witness in heaven. But thou hast cast off and set at naught, and thou hast rejected thine anointed. Thou hast overthrown the covenant of thy servant. Thou hast profaned his sanctuary, casting it to the ground. Thou hast broken down all his hedges. Thou hast made his strongholds a terror. All that go by the way have spoiled him. He has become a reproach to his neighbors. Thou hast exalted thy right hand of his enemies, and thou hast made all the enemies to rejoice. Thou hast turned back the help of his sword, and hast not helped him in battle. Thou hast deprived him of glory, and thou hast broken down his throne to the ground. Thou hast shortened the days of his throne, and have poured shame upon him. How long, O Yahuwah, wilt thou turn away? Forever? Shall thine anger flame out as fire? Remember what my being is, for hast thou created all the sons of men in vain? What man is there who shall live and not see death? Shall anyone deliver his soul from the hand of Hades? Where are thine ancient mercies, O Yahuwah, which thou swearest to David in thine truth? Remember, O Yahuwah, the reproach of thy servants, which I have borne in my bosom, even the reproach of many nations, wherewith thine enemies have reviled Yahuwah. Oh, I'm sorry. Wherewith the enemies have reviled, O Yahuwah, wherewith they have reviled the recompense of thine anointed. Blessed be the Lord forever. So be it. So be it. And Psalms 90, in the Septuagint. A prayer of Moshe to the man of Yahuwah. Lord, thou hast been our refuge in all generations. Before the mountains existed and before the earth and the world were formed, even from age to age, thou art. Turn not man back to his low place, where thou said, return ye sons of men. For 1,000 years in thy sight are as yesterday which is past, and as a watch in the night. Years shall be vanity to them. Let the morning pass away as grass. In the morning let it flower and pass away. In the evening let it droop, let it be withered and dry up. For we have perished in thine anger, and in thy wrath we have been troubled. Thou hast set our transgressions before thee. Our age is in the light of thy countenance. For all of our days are gone, and we have passed away in thy wrath. Our years have spun out their tail as a spider. As for the days of our years, in them are 70 years. And if men should be in strength, 80 years. And if the great part of them would be labor and trouble, for weakness overtakes us, and we shall be chastened. Who knows the power of thy wrath? And who knows how to number his days because of the fear of thy wrath? So manifest thy right hand, and those that are instructed in wisdom and in heart. Return, Yahuwah, how long, and be entreated concerning thy servants. We have been satisfied in the morning with thy mercy, and we did exult and rejoice. Let us rejoice in all our days, in return for the days wherein thou did afflict us, the years wherein we saw evil. And look upon thine servants, and upon thine works, and guide their children. And let the brightness of Yahuwah, our Elohim, be upon us, and do thou direct for us the works of our hands. All right, that was it. You want me to go one more because of the the exchange rate here?
Yeah, what is that 90 in the Masoretic?
It's gonna be 90 in the Masoretic when I start reading 91 from the Septuagint.
Oh, okay. All right, yeah, go ahead. If you're good to finish it, yeah, sure.
Yeah. I might have even started one early. All right. Praise of a song by David. He that dwells in the help of the highest shall sojourn under the shelter of of the Elohim of heaven. He shall say to Yahuwah, thou art my helper and my refuge, my Elohim, I will hope in him. For he shall deliver thee from the snare of the hunters, from every troublesome matter. He shall overshadow thee with his shoulders, and shall trust under his wings. His truth shall cover thee with a shield. Thou shalt not be afraid of terror by night, nor of the arrow flying by day, nor of the evil thing that walks in darkness, nor of calamity, and of the evil spirit at noonday. 1,000 shall fall at thy side, and 10,000 at thy right hand, but it shall not come nigh thee. Only with thine eyes shalt thou observe and see the reward of sinners. For thou, O Yahuwah, art my hope. Thou, my soul, hast made the Most High thy refuge. No evil shall come upon thee, and no scourge shall draw nigh to thy dwelling. For he shall give his angels charge concerning thee, to keep thee in all thy ways. They shall bear thee upon their hands, lest at any time thou dash thy foot against a stone. Thou shalt tread on the asp and basilisk, and thou shalt trample on the lion and dragon, for he has hoped in me, and I will deliver him. I will protect him, because he has known my name. He shall call upon me, and I will hearken to him. I am with him in affliction. I will deliver him and glorify him. I will satisfy him with length of days and show him my salvation. So it's kind of interesting. Where's it at? So this has definitely got some shadowing going on here of our Messiah.
Yeah, stepping on the scorpion.
Yeah, there's that. Hold on. It was so they shall bear thee up on their hands, lest at any time thou dash thy foot against a stone. The verse before it says, I will give you, for he shall give his angels charge concerning thee to keep thee in all thy ways. So you remember in the temptation in the wilderness when he says, when he's going to throw him off and says, oh gosh, how does it go exactly?
Yeah, he says, go ahead, why don't you jump off this cliff? Throw yourself off of this cliff. Isn't it written that he will send his angels concerning you? They would not let your foot get dashed on the rocks. And then Yahushua quotes the Torah back to him, and he says, do not put Yahuwah your Elohim to the test.
Yeah.
And that's great, man. That's awesome. So he has a promise concerning his own safety, and he could have, in front of the devil, because the devil said to, he could have just jumped right off and knowing he'd be fine, right? But instead of choosing to do anything the devil says, he quotes back to him, even though that promise is there for him to rely on, so that's kind of cool and very interesting. He could have done it and been safe, but he chose not to just.
Where Satan knows our word, and he will.
Well, it's not our word. It's,
no
it's
word.
The
Yeah. But and he will try to use it against. If he tries to use it against him,
he was there. He was there day 4. I mean, he was there. He was created on day 4. So I'm just saying, he was there when Yahuwah prepared the word before Yahuwah even gave it. Yeah. So I mean, yeah, of course he's gonna know it better than us. Satan's servants sometimes know it better than us. That's why we need to study the word and know the word, because he can use it right back against us. He can twist it, pervert it. Usually he perverts it. Usually he takes it out of context, and he'll be like, oh yeah, go ahead, jump off that cliff. Go ahead. Yahuwah won't let you die. Go ahead. If you're his son, same type of spirit that's in the Pharisees.
Right. He would have been obeying Satan, which he did not want.
Well, what I find interesting is the same thing the Pharisees said to him when he was on the stake. He's like, oh, if you're his son, why don't you, save yourself? It's like you can see that same type of
save others.
Spirit.
Why don't you save yourself now?
Well, no. I think the phrase was, if you're the son of the Most High, or if you're his son, why don't you save yourself? Why don't you come down off that cross? And that's the same thing that Satan said to him, because Satan started testing him. If we go to the Brit Hadashah, where he's like, oh, if you're really his son, okay, why don't you turn that rock into bread? If you're really his son. So it's like the same, making us doubt the word. And he was trying to make Yahushua even doubt himself in his weak humanity at that point. That's the way I kind of take it. He's like making him doubt himself. Oh, are you really the son of Yahuwah? Yeah, go ahead, turn that, do a miracle for me. It's the same type of spirit that's in the Pharisees. Because everything, Yahushua even said to them, you're such a wicked generation, you seek a sign. You want me to do a miracle for you. Seek a sign. You always want to seek a sign. But anyway. Yeah, that's a great point, Brother Jeff. That's a great point about the temptation in the wilderness and how that ties to what you just read in Psalms 91 of the Masoretic, which is 90 of the Septuagint.
And if it had been me, I would have started cussing him out. I mean, that there would have been no two ways about it. But what does he do? He just quotes scripture,
quotes the Torah.
That is so
specifically
powerful. That is just so classy too. Yep. It's like classy and powerful all at the same time.
When he gets tempted to worship him, he quotes the Torah again in another instance where puts him on the high mountain, says, I think it's in Matthew chapter 4 for anyone that wants to look that up. It's in Matthew 4 where the devil actually says to him, this has been given to me. I own these kingdoms of this world. You know,
And you sure
if
do.
if you want the esteem of these kingdoms, I can give them to you if you bow down and worship me. And you know, Yahusha does not rebuke him. He does not say
No.
they're not his to give. He actually says, no, I'm going to serve Yahuwah because I worship him alone. You know, he says, or he actually says, not to paraphrase here, he actually says, you know, it is written, you shall worship Yahuwah and him alone shall you serve. So Yahusha is basically rebuttaling him again with Torah. And he's basically saying, no, I'm not going to commit idolatry. I'm not going to worship you. You know, so, but yeah, a lot of the times Yahusha would strike against the enemy by using scripture, and that's a good example. He says, you know, I am your example. So
He wasn't going to get too far. He was coming at the word of Yahuwah with the word of Yahuwah. So he wasn't going to get real far.
Yeah, kingdom divided doesn't stand. So you know that kind of doesn't make any
an
sense.
Undivided heart. Give me an undivided heart. He said in mine on one of these songs.
Yeah.
Didn't say
But
that.
to try to defeat Yahushua with himself, that was a really bad idea by Satan. Really bad idea. So anyway, but oh man, there was so much in these 10 chapters that Jeff just read. I found it interesting. A lot of the times, the Septuagint here is a lot more specific when David is speaking here. If David's the one speaking all 10 of these chapters, it's very interesting that a couple of verses I took note of. 84 verse 5 to be exact. It starts off with this omitting here by the Masoretic. And seems like Yahuwah's name, Tetragrammaton, is completely non-existent in verse 5 here. Yeah, it just says, Baruch the man whose strength is in you. Who's the you? It's like obviously we know he's referring to Yahuwah, but the bigger point is you don't take his name out.
No, that's
true. You don't do that. And maybe it says Lord in your English, version of Septuagint, but at least that Lord there indicates to us what should be there in the original Hebrew. It should have been the H3068, which would have been Yahuwah there. So that's one good thing about even the English translation of the Septuagint. It says there, "O Lord," so it's referring to Yahuwah's name there is supposed to be there, "O Yahuwah." So in verse 5 there, I thought that was interesting. Verse 6, the lawgiver. We can go to tons of scriptures that talk about who the lawgiver is. And I'll just give two cross references because I don't want to take too much time. We still got Acts to read today and the one chapter of Hebrews. So I'm not going to go too much into the lawgiver topic because there's scriptures for days about that. But I will give you Genesis. I'll show you a little oneness here. I'm pretty sure Brother Jeff was catching this when he was reading it too. The lawgiver in Genesis refers to this Messiah figure. In Genesis 48, or no, 49 verse 11. Let me correct myself here. Genesis 49:11. Okay, if we go there, all right, and this is all the barakas of all the 12 sons of Jacob. So this is the context of this chapter. Then once he gets to Judah and who's to come from Judah, especially if you read the Targums, it's even more specific who is coming from Judah, who it's supposed to be. And it's definitely referring to a messianic scripture. Any Jewish person that says to you, Genesis 49:11 is not a messianic prophecy, I would laugh. In their own Yemenite community Torahs, it mentions King Messiah in this verse. So, yeah, I would be able to easily debunk them with their own scriptures. So, binding his foal to the vine and the foal of his donkey to the branch of it. Right there, you should already understand who it's talking about here, just with the one phrase in the Bretons here, the branch. And he shall wash his robe in wine. Isaiah 60, 61, Mom, or 63?
I believe
Talks about the wine press, Yahuwah treading the wine press, okay? Yeah. And his garment in the blood of grape. You can find that in Revelations, okay? Let's see here. His eyes shall be more cheering than wine, his teeth whiter than milk. Actually, it might have been the Targum version of this that talks about the lawgiver. Okay, never mind. But we can find other scriptures where the Father clearly is the lawgiver. We can find scriptures that Yahuwah is mentioned. That's the reason I brought this up. Even in our modern Old Testaments.
The lion image is there, lion's cup. There's so many connections there.
Okay, Isaiah 33:22. So let's go to Isaiah 33:22 real quick here. Okay. But I will give you guys a cross-reference for the Targum of Genesis 49 once I find it. I'll probably have to do it off the record. But I know it does talk about Messiah, the coming Messiah, being the lawgiver in a certain verse. So, and I could be wrong. It might not be in Genesis 49, but I know somewhere in the Torah it talks about that. Anyway, but let's see here. All right, so Isaiah 33:22 from the Septuagint. For my Alu or Elohim is great. Yahuwah our judge shall not pass me by. Yahuwah is our prince. Yahuwah is our king. And he shall save us. Now, does it say lawgiver?
Mine does.
Yeah, so Masoretic. Funny enough, Masoretic as lawgiver. That's funny. Okay. So, yeah, I actually like the Masoretic in this particular verse. I like the fact that it says lawgiver, okay? Because it goes back to Psalms there. We just read in 84 verse 6 of Psalms. So we can move on here. 85 verse 6 of Psalms I wanted to look at. Okay. Either way, I will give you guys that verse that talks about Messiah being the lawgiver when I find it. Okay. All right. Here we go. 85 verse 6. Masoretic text lacks Elohim this time and just puts you. Who's the you? Who's the person they're talking to? Unless you read the next verse of the prior verses, you don't know who they're talking about.
Yeah.
Okay, who's the you? You know, I'm pretty sure Yahuwah likes to be mentioned. The creator of the universe likes to be mentioned in his own word. I'm pretty sure that's common sense. He should be mentioned. Let's see here. Okay. So let's see here. The Complete Apostles Bible says, "O Alua, turn and revive us. Your people shall rejoice in you." So actually mentions at least the title Alua Elohim. At least you know who he's referring to here. Okay. Let's see here. 86 verse 8. Okay, there is none like you, O Yahuwah, among the gods, and there are no works like yours. Now, I would say you can almost assume this is referring to angels. Safe to assume. Okay. We don't have time to get into it, but I would really recommend, if this is a new concept to you, you've never heard of this scriptural concept, watch the video, Are Human Beings Lesser Mighty Ones? That's on the channel. Question mark. Are human beings lesser mighty ones? And that should clear it up. That video would clear it up for you. Many times in the Old Testament, the majority of the time, when it has lowercase gods's, usually in context, it's referring to angels, fallen angels, or even demons. Very rarely do they ever use that term, Hebrew or Greek, for human beings. Very rarely. Very rarely. And the only times they do it in the Targums actually don't use that word, Theos or Elohim. They actually use Rabbi. So just saying. Anyway, so that's what I truly believe. I personally believe that this exclusively, the majority of the time when it says the mighty ones, the Elohim, it's referring to angels, just like in Psalms 82 that Jeff read earlier. So, let's see here. So we already went through that. Verse 15. Again in this chapter, same chapter here, verse 15 again. So the Septuagint has O Yahuwah Alua, or Yahuwah Elohim. Then if you go to the Masoretic, Elohim's missing there, so it just says O Yahuwah. At least they have Yahuwah there, but they're omitting the Hebrew title following his name, Elohim or Alua. And the Septuagint actually has both in that verse. So I thought that was interesting. So we talk about anything else here. 89 verse 9. Now let's jump to, I have one note here for chapter 89 verse 9. You rule the swelling of the sea when its waves rise. You still them. Man, does that there's someone in the New Testament that reminds me of.
Calm the seas.
And
Peace be still.
now the context here is it's actually referring to Yahuwah doing this, but then when you get to the Brit Hadashah, when it happens, it's the son, Yahusha, that actually physically does it. And that's why they say, who is he that he can do this?
He's the creator. That's who he is. He made those waves.
But I know, Mom, the point I'm trying to make is that the apostles at that point didn't get that revelation yet.
Yeah, they didn't. No.
That's why in 1 Corinthians 12:3 it says, no one can understand this concept unless the Spirit reveals it to you. Unless the Ruach HaKodesh reveals to you that they are one and the same, you will not understand that. It is something that the Father, it's a prerogative of his to reveal it when he wants to.
Oh, sure.
To his people. And sometimes he doesn't reveal it to everyone at once. So that's just something to study out for yourself. But as far as I'm concerned, in my opinion, verse 9 of Psalms 89 clearly shows oneness there.
Yes.
Clearly.
Yeah, I agree. I agree.
Okay. So let's see here. Verse 19. Then you spoke in a vision to your kind one, and you said, I have given help to one who is mighty. I have exalted one chosen from the people. I find it interesting it says the people in the Masoretic, but if you look at, and maybe this is a translation difference, but if you look in the Complete Apostles Bible, it says out of my people. Now think about it. Was Yahusha supposed to be a Gentile-born Messiah? Or was he supposed to be from the physical lineage of Abraham, of David? So I'm just saying, if this chosen one is being referred to as a messianic figure, the Septuagint definitely beats the Masoretic, in my opinion. Makes way more sense. Out of my people. So, meaning his chosen one is to come out of, from Yahuwah's original people. So, to me, I would definitely think, in my opinion, that the Septuagint makes a lot more sense if it's saying my people versus the people. Because the peoples, technically in the Hebrew, could be the Goyim, the Gentiles, you know. So, anyway, so, all right, let's see here. We already did that. Verse 21 of this chapter. For my hand shall support him. Now, we already know who that's referring to. The right hand of the Father. His hand will help him. A lot of times in the Targums of the Torah, it will say the word of Yahuwah is their helper. Okay, so this is a concept even the first century Judeans actually understood pretty well. Even though they rejected Yahusha, which shows you really the huge stumbling block that in prophecy, spoken of in Psalms, to put over them, to actually understand who the word of Yahuwah was supposed to be, but yet when the word of Yahuwah takes flesh, they don't accept it, yet they have the word of Yahuwah in their scriptures, and it just blows my mind in my opinion. Anyway, so let's see here. All right, that's it. And now we could move on here. I think what we'll do to finish this out, my mom and I will split up Acts. Okay. Acts 25 to 28. So I think I'll do 25, 26, and my mom will do 27, 28. And then I'll read Hebrews 1, so that way we can finish out as quickly as possible. Okay, so thank you everyone staying with us for this long Facebook Live. I really appreciate it. I really appreciate you guys sticking with us and tuning into this study today. Okay, so all right, so what I'm going to do for the viewers and listeners, because they're going to need to follow with us. Okay, so what I'll do is I'll do the Aramaic New Testament. One side, and I think I'll do the Etheridge on the other, the Syriac on the other. So they're similar, but the Aramaic's way more pro-oneness. That's the main difference. So, okay, so now we're going to go to Acts 25. Just make sure I know. Yeah, so that is it. Okay, so Acts 25 to 28 is the next one. Okay, so then we got that in Hebrews 1, and that's it. Okay, so I'll start us off. Acts 25. And when Festus came to Caesarea, after 3 days, he went up to Jerusalem, and the chief priests and the elders showed him concerning Apollos, meaning Paul. Okay, verse 3 here. And besought him, asking of him this favor, that he would bring him to Jerusalem while they would act treacherously in the way by killing him. And Festus returned the word that Apollos was kept in Caesarea, and I am hastening to proceed. Let those therefore of you who are able go down with us and accuse him of whatever guilt there is in the man. Okay. And when he had been there 8 days or 10, he went down to Caesarea, and the day after he sat on the tribunal and commanded to bring Apollos. And when he had come, the Judeans, Yahudi, had come down from Jerusalem, surrounded him, and accusations, many and hard, meaning harsh, brought against him, and they were not able to prove. While Apollos put forth the mind that he not offended in anything, neither against the law of the Yahudi, the Torah, okay, it's not referring to traditions of men, nor against the temple, nor against Caesar. But Festus, because he willed to accord a favor to the Yahudi, said to Apollos, are you willing to go up to Jerusalem, and there concerning these things to be judged before me? Apollos answered and said, at the tribunal of Caesar stand I. There it is right for me to be judged. Not anything have I transgressed against the Yahudi, as also you know. And if a crime I have committed or anything worthy of death, I ask not to be exempted from death. But if there be nothing in me of which these accuse me, no man shall give me to them as a gift. I invoke the appeals of Caesar. So Paul's really smart. He's like, you're not taking me to Jerusalem. I'm going to Caesar while I can get a fair trial. Then Festus, having spoke with the sons of his council, said, the appeals of Caesar have you invoked. To Caesar you go. And when days had been, Agrippos the king and Bernice came. Bernice.
Who is that? Is that
I don't know. Okay. Some person.
Okay.
Agrippos is the king. Bernice,
yeah.
I don't know. Maybe he's a Roman. I don't know.
Okay, yeah.
Came down to Caesarea to salute the peace of Festus. Okay. And when they had been with him some days, Festus recounted to the king the judgment or cause of Apollos, saying, a certain man has been left bound by Felix. Okay, verse 15. And when I was at Jerusalem, the chief priests and the elders of the Yahudi informed me against him and begged that I would do for them judgment. Okay. Against him. And I told them it was not the custom of the Romans to give any man as a gift to be killed, meaning, I'm not going to give you for you guys to slaughter him for a bribe. So he's actually being righteous by doing this. He's saying, I'm not going to give it to you for a bribe, just to do you a favor. And until his adversaries have come and accused him to his face, and there be given him place to defend himself against that of which he is accused. And when I had come here, Without delay, and the day after, I sat on the tribunal and commanded to bring the man to me. And his accusers stood up with him and could not find any evil accusation to prove against him, such as I had expected. Okay. But various questions with him regarding their worship and concerning Yahusha, a man who was dead, of whom Paul said that he was alive. So they're actually curious about the resurrection here. And because I stood not or have not been constituted for upon the investigation of these matters, I said to Paul, do you require to go to Jerusalem and there be judged concerning these? But he required to be kept until the judgment of Caesar. And I commanded that he should be kept until I may send him to Caesar. And Agrippos said, I would hear this man. And Festus said, tomorrow you shall hear him. And the day after, let's see, 1 second. And the day after came Agrippos and Bernice with the great pomp and entered the house of judgment, and the tribunes and the chiefs of the city. Festus commanded, and Paul came. And Festus said to Agrippa, King of Agrippas, and all men who are with us concerning this man, whom you see, have all the people of the Yahudah taken me at Jerusalem and here, crying that this ought not further to live. But I perceived not that he had done anything worthy of death. And because he required to be reserved for the judgment of Caesar, I have commanded that he should be sent. But I know not what to write of him unto Caesar. Therefore have I willed to bring him before you, and especially before you, King Agrippas, that having inquired into his case, I may find what to write. For it is not fit when we send a man bound not to record his transgression. Okay. Okay. All right, we're going to go to chapter 26. And after 26, my mom will take over. All right, chapter 26 of Acts. And Agrippa said to Paul, it is permitted you to speak for yourself. Then Paul stretched forth his hand and made defense and said, of all that I am accused by the Yahudah, King Agrippas, I consider myself happy that before you I have to make defense. Yeah, because he knows. He knows the Romans they can't take a bribe.
He's given all allegiance. Yeah. He's wording it right. He knows what he's doing.
Especially because I know that you are conversant with all questions. Mm-hmm. And laws of the Judeans, meaning you know all their laws, what they're bound by. Yeah. Therefore I pray you with patient mind to hear me, for the Yahudah themselves, if they would testify, know my manners from my youth, which were mine from the beginning among my people at Jerusalem, because they of a long time were assured of me, and they know that in the high doctrine of the Pharisee I lived. So Paul knows all their laws. He's not, now he's talking about the traditions of men. Now he's talking about the tradition of the elders that Yahusha talks about in Mark 7. So now he's basically saying they can't school me because I know all their stuff.
I know their law. Yeah.
And now concerning the trust of the promise that was made to our fathers by Alua, I stand and am judged. And for this trust, to which our 12 tribes with diligent prayers by day and night are expecting to come, for this very trust am I accused by the Yahudah, King Agrippos. What judge you ought we not to believe that Alua will raise the dead? So basically he's saying, who are you to judge and say that Yahuwah can't raise the dead? For I at the first proposed in my mind to do many things against the name of Yahushua Messiah. So now he's talking about his former ways in Phariseeism. This I also did in Jerusalem, and many set apart ones I cast into the house of the bond by the authority which I had received from the great priests. And when they were killed by them, I participated in those who condemned them. and in every synagogue. I was furious against them, while I constrained them to blaspheme the name of Yahusha, and being filled with great wrath against them. And I went forth unto other cities also to persecute them. So, and while going on this account to Damascus with authority and permission from the great priests, at the dividing of the day in this way, I saw from heaven, O king, shining upon me and upon all who were with me, a light which was more excellent than the sun. So that's how you know Yahusha's not the sun, okay? He's not the luminary of the sun, okay? And we fell all of us upon the earth, and I heard a voice that said to me in Hebrew, Shaul, Shaul, why do you persecute me? And then it gives you the Syriac here, Shaul, Shaul, Mano, Rudef, Asli. It is hard for you to kick against the pricks. Basically, it's this is what you would call a historical idiom. Okay, just means it's hard for you to go against the truth. You know, why are you fighting against the grain? And I said, who are you, my master? And he said, I am Yahusha, Nazarene, or Yahusha of Nazareth, whom you persecute. And he said to me, stand upon your feet, because for this I have appeared to you, to appoint you a minister, a witness of that, for which you have seen me, for which you shall see me. I will deliver you from the people of the Yahudi and from the other nations to whom I send you, to open their eyes that they may turn from darkness to light, and from the power of Satan unto Alua, and receive the forgiveness of sins, a lot, and a lot or possession with the set apart ones through belief which is in me. Okay? Wherefore, King Agrippus, I withstood not with perversity the heavenly vision, but preached at first to them who were in Damascus, and to them who were in Jerusalem, and in all the districts of the Yahudi, and also to the Gentiles, have I preached that they should repent and turn to Alua and do the works worthy of repentance. And I like how the Aramaic here, instead of just works worthy of repentance, actually says, and do deeds worthy of a return to Alua. I kind of like how the Aramaic makes it a little bit more specific. There we go. For these things the Yahudi seized in the temple and would have killed me, but Alua has helped me until this day. And behold, I stand and testify to the small and to the great, yet nothing beyond Musha. Now that's the Aramaic for Masha, you know, Moses. So that's the actual more correct name for Moses there than what we have in our English Bibles today. And the prophets do I speak, but those things which they said should come to pass. Okay, so now he's talking about prophecy. He's talking about what is talked about in the law of Moses, that the Messiah should suffer and should be the chief of the resurrection, meaning, you know, I'm trying to remember what the Greek word is there for chief. I think it's something ark or something like that. It's chief in authority over those of the resurrection. From the house of the dead should preach light to the people and to the nations, Gentiles. Okay. So again, all right. And Paulus, thus making defense, Festus cried in a high voice, you are mad. Paulus, much learning or many books has made you mad. That's funny. That kind of cross-references, I'll talk about that later, but that kind of cross-references with Ecclesiastes a little bit, even though they're being kind of facetious with him there. King Solomon talks about the wearying of writing many books, and much studying, you know, makes you crazy or wearies the soul. You know? Paul said to him, I am not mad, victorious Festus, but words of truth and righteousness I speak. And King Agrippus also especially knows concerning these things, and therefore speak I with openness before him, because not one of these things I think have been hidden from him, for they were not done in secrecy. Believes thou, King Agrippas, the prophets I know that you believe? King Agrippa said to him, a little you persuade me to become a messianic. You should say messianic, they're not Christian. Apollos said, I would from Alua that in little and in much, not only you, but also all who hear me today were as I am, except these bonds or these chains. The king arose, and the governor, and Bernice, and those who sat with them, and when they were removed, then they spake one with another and said, nothing that is worthy of death or of bonds has this man done. Again, this kind of parallels to me the story of Yahusha and how Pontius Pilate said the same thing about Yahusha.
Yeah.
He doesn't deserve death. But again, this is a little different. I mean, it's talking about Paul is the guy saying Paul has not deserved to be in chains right now. He's done nothing wrong. And Agrippa said to Festus, this man could have been dismissed if he had not called the appeal of Caesar. So basically it's showing that if Paul didn't use that little trick on them, he could have been screwed and he probably would have been killed by the Judeans. So he was very smart, very wise. Like Yahusha says, be wise as serpents, harmless as doves. Go ahead, Mom.
Okay, so Paul sails for Rome. When it was decided that we would sail for Italy, Paul and some other prisoners were handed over to a centurion named Julius, who belonged to the imperial regiment. We boarded a ship from Adramyttium, about to sail for ports along the coast of the province of Asia, and we put out to sea. Aristarchus, a Macedonian from Thessalonica, was with us. The next day we landed at Sidon, and Julius, in kindness to Paul, allowed him to go to his friends so they might provide for his needs. From there we put out to sea again and passed to the lee of Cyprus, because the winds were against us. When we had sailed across the open sea, off the coast of Cilicia and Pamphylia, we landed at Myra in Lycia. There the centurion found an Alexandrian ship sailing for Italy and put us on board. We made slow headway for many days and had difficulty arriving off Cnidus. When the wind did not allow us to hold our course, we sailed to the lee of Crete, opposite Salmone. We moved along the coast with difficulty and came to a place called Fair Havens, near the town of Lasea. Much time had been lost, and sailing had already been dangerous because by now it was after the fast. So, and that was referring to the Feast of Atonement.
Well, according to the translator.
Yeah.
According to their opinion.
I know.
Yeah.
So Paul warned them, men, I can see that our voyage is going to be dangerous and bring great loss to the ship and cargo and to our own lives also. But the centurion, instead of listening to what Paul said, followed the advice of the pilot and of the owner of the ship, since the harbor was unsuitable to winter in. The majority decided that we should sail on, hoping to reach Phoenix and winter there. This was a harbor in Crete, facing both southwest and northwest. When a gentle south wind began to blow, they thought they had obtained what they wanted, so they weighed anchor and sailed along the shore of Crete. Before very long, a wind of hurricane force, called the nor'easter, swept down from the island. The ship was caught by the storm and could not head into the wind, so we gave way to it and were driven along. As we passed to the lee of a small island called Cauda, we were hardly able to make the lifeboat secure. When the men had hoisted it aboard, they passed ropes under the ship itself to hold it together, fearing that they would run aground on the sandbars of Syrtis. They lowered the sea anchor and let the ship be driven along. We took such a violent battering for the storm that the next day they began to throw the cargo overboard. On the third day, they threw the ship's tackle overboard with their own hands. When neither sun nor stars appeared for many days, and the storm continued raging, we finally gave up all hope of being saved. After the men had gone a long time without food, Paul stood up before them and said, Men, you should have taken my advice not to sail from Crete. Then you would have spared yourselves this damage and loss. But now I urge you to keep up your courage, because not one of you will be lost. Only the ship will be destroyed. Last night, an angel of Yahuwah, whose I am and whom I serve, stood before me and said, Do not be afraid, Paul. You must stand trial before Caesar, and Yahuwah has graciously given you the lives of all who sail with you. So keep up your courage, men, for I have faith in Yahuwah that it will happen just as he told me. Nevertheless, we must run ground on some island. On the 14th night, we were still being driven across the Adriatic Sea. Okay. All right. They took surroundings and found that the water was 120 feet deep. A short time later, they took surroundings again and found it was 90 feet deep. Fearing that we would be dashed against the rocks, they dropped 4 anchors from the stern and prayed for daylight. In an attempt to escape from the ship, the sailors let the lifeboat down into the sea, pretending they were going to lower some anchors from the bow. Then Paul said to the centurion and the soldiers, Unless these men stay with the ship, you cannot be saved. So the soldiers cut the ropes that held the lifeboat and let it fall away. Just before dawn, Paul urged them all to eat. For the last 14 days, he said, you have been in constant suspense and have gone without food. You haven't eaten anything. Now I urge you to take some food. You need it to survive. Not one of you will lose a single hair from your head. After he had said this, he took some bread and gave thanks to Yahuwah in front of them all. Then he broke it and began to eat. They were all encouraged and ate some food themselves. Altogether, they were 276 of us on board. When they had eaten as much as they wanted, they lightened the ship by throwing the grain into the sea. When daylight came, they did not recognize the land, but they saw a bay with a sandy beach where they decided to run the ship aground if they could. Cutting loose the anchors, they left them in the sea and at the same time untie the ropes that held the rudders. Then they hoisted the foresail to the wind and made for beach. But the ship struck a sandbar and ran aground. The bow stuck fast and would not move, and the stern was broken to pieces by the pounding of the surf. The soldiers planned to kill the prisoners to prevent any of them from swimming away and escaping, but the centurion wanted to spare Paul's life and kept them from carrying out their plan. He ordered those who could swim to jump overboard first and get to land. The rest were to get there on planks or on pieces of the ship. In this way, everyone reached land in safety.
Okay, no problem.
Ashore on Malta. All right. Once safely on shore, we found out that the island was called Malta. The islanders showed us unusual kindness. They built a fire and welcomed us all because it was raining and cold. Paul gathered a pile of brushwood, and as he put it on the fire, a viper, driven out of the heat, fastened itself on his hand. When the islanders saw the snake hanging from his hand, they said to each other, This man must be a murderer, for though he escaped from the sea, justice has not allowed him to live. But Paul shook the snake off into the fire and suffered no ill effects. The people expected him to swell up or suddenly fall over dead, But after waiting a long time and seeing nothing unusual happen to him, they changed their minds and said he was a god. There was an estate nearby that belonged to Publius, the chief official of the island. He welcomed us to his home and for 3 days entertained us hospitably. His father was sick in bed, suffering from fever and dysentery. Paul went in to see him, and after prayer, placed his hands on him and healed him. When this had happened, the rest of the sick on the island came and were cured. This guy can heal. Let's go see him. They honored as in many ways. They honored us in many ways, and when we were ready to sail, they furnished us with the supplies we needed. After 3 months, we put out to sea in a ship that had wintered in the island. It was an Alexandrian ship with the figurehead of the twin gods, Castor and Pollux. We put in at Syracuse and stayed there 3 days.
Huh.
Yeah, isn't that interesting? From there, we set sail and arrived at Rhegium. The next day, the south wind came up, and on the following day, we reached Puteoli. There, we found some brothers who invited us to spend a week with them, and so we went to Rome. The brothers there had heard that we were coming, and they traveled as far as the Forum of Appius and the 3 taverns to meet us. At the sight of these men, Paul thanked Yahuwah and was encouraged. When we got to Rome, Paul was allowed to live by himself with a soldier to guard him. 3 days later, we got a lot of 3 days, he called together the leaders of the Jews when they had assembled. Paul said to them, "My brothers, although I have done nothing against our people or against the customs of our ancestors, I was arrested in Jerusalem and handed over to the Romans. They examined me and wanted to release me because I was not guilty of any crime deserving death. But when the Jews objected, I was compelled to appeal to Caesar. Not that I have any charge to bring against my own people. For this reason, I have asked to see you and talk with you. It is because of the hope of Israel that I am bound with this chain." They replied, "We have not received any letters from Judea concerning you, and none of the brothers who has come from them has reported us or anything bad about you. But we want to hear what your views are, for we know that people everywhere are talking against this sect." They arranged to meet Paul on a certain day and came in even larger numbers to the place where he was staying. From morning till evening, he explained and declared to them the kingdom of Yahuwah and tried to convince them about Yahusha from the law of Moses and from the prophets. Some were convinced by what he said, but others would not believe. They disagreed amongst themselves and began to leave after Paul had made this final statement. "The set-apart Spirit spoke the truth to your forefathers when he said through the prophet Isaiah, 'Go to this people and say, you will be ever hearing but never understanding. You will be ever seeing but not perceiving. For this people's heart has become callous. They hardly hear with their ears, and they have closed their eyes, otherwise they might see with their eyes, hear with their ears, understand with their hearts, and turn, and I would heal them.' Therefore, I want you to know that Yahuwah's salvation has been sent to the Gentiles, and they will listen." For 2 whole years, Paul stayed there in his own rented house and welcomed all who came to see him. Boldly and without hindrance, he preached the kingdom of Yahuwah and taught about Yahuwah, Yeshua.
Master Yahusha.
I lost it at
You're
the
almost
end.
there, almost there.
Too many big words there at the end.
It's all right. The Master Yahusha. Yeah.
I found it interesting. I don't know why that he had his own home. I don't know why I found that so interesting.
Well, so
because
what
Yahuwah takes care of us, you know.
I think one of the most important verses here, especially for Christians that might be seeing this later on YouTube or on Facebook, where did Paul start when preaching about Yahusha? Did he start in the New Testament? Verse 23 here. says, and they appointed him a day, and many assembled and came where he sojourned, and he explained to them concerning the kingdom of Elua or Yahuwah. So talking about the topic is concerning the kingdom of Yahuwah, which hasn't came yet. Testifying and pursuing them concerning Yahusha from the law of Musha, from Masha, from Moses, the law of Moses. He's using the law of Moses and the prophets to preach to people about the Messiah.
Right.
Okay. So I thought that was pretty important.
Yeah.
Let's see here. So, and again, Yahusha did the same. I think in the book of Luke, someone put on Facebook the other day, I think it's Luke 24, talks about he started explaining to his apostles who he was from the law of Moses. So when we go to verse 6 here, I thought it was interesting. You got these barbarians saying, oh, he's a god. You gotta understand, these are pagans. You gotta understand. They're worshiping a pantheon, a pagan. No. These are Romans or barbarians. They're Romans. Because think about it, Mom. You just read about him going to Italy, right?
Yeah.
And Syracuse. In your Bible, even if you look at the maps on your Bible, Syracuse back then is a name of a capital of Sicily. It's actually where our people are from, our ethnic. Okay.
Yeah.
I find it funny. We got a college called Syracuse University.
Yeah, we got a town too. It's a town college in New York State.
So I find that interesting. But anyway, so if we use the context that they're around the Roman Italy region, Sicily region, these are Roman pagan Romans that are saying, he must be a god, because you got to understand in their culture, their gods look like men.
Yeah.
If you look at any archaeology from the pantheons, now the Egyptians, they got abominations as their gods. They got, all these half-human hybrids. But if you look at the Romans and the Greeks, their pantheons, even though they're not men, these gods that they worship, even though they're not men, they make them look like men. They made Zeus look like a man. They made Hermes look like a man. Like if you actually look at the way they portray their gods, it's easy to believe why they look at Paul, what he's doing in their pagan warped mind. And they're like, oh, he's one of our gods. And I think that's what's going on here. Plus the fact, if we look at the biblical narrative, Genesis 6, these fallen angels had to take bodies of men to do what they did with the women. So they most likely came to earth looking like men. And probably that tradition of these humanoid celestial beings being gods came all the way down before the flood, through these polytheist cultures. And so that's why in other places, like we just read a couple of weeks ago in Acts, they called Barnabas Zeus.
Yeah.
And they called Paul Hermes. This was their culture. This was their culture. So it's important to understand other cultures and why they're calling him this, because that in their culture, he would have resembled one of their false gods.
Well, they saw him physically healing. That blew their mind when they saw him healing the man, the grandfather or whatever it was, and then they all came running.
Yeah. And if you find that hard to believe that the angels that sinned in Genesis 6, as mentioned in 2 Peter 2:4 and all that they didn't take human bodies, I would suggest you look at the Greek word in the book of Jude. When it talks about they left their own habitation, it's not talking about a physical house. Okay? It's talking about their bodies. So if you look at the Greek word okateria, okay, so there's actual canonical evidence that the B'nai Elohim, they took on bodies of men. Almost like we could look at it, like I've mentioned before, as a reverse resurrection. Really what happened, they took bodies of carnal, sinful flesh to do what they did. So when they're seeing Paul doing all these miracles, they're like, is he one of, one of the Elohim? Is he one of the, one of the gods we worship? So I just wanted to explain that and expound upon that, just so you can make a little bit of sense like that, because I know that used to confuse the heck out of me. Anyway, so let's see here. Hebrews chapter 1. I'm going to read Hebrews chapter 1 and end us off for today. And I'll use the Aramaic New Testament here. Okay. Hebrews chapter 1. From the first in all parts and all forms, Allah spoke with our fathers by the prophets, talking about all the prophets in our canon, okay? And in these last days, he has spoken with us by his Son, whom he ordained the heir of all things, and by him he made the universe.
Mhm.
So even though you'll see in the Tanakh, sometimes it will say, I myself alone made the heavens and the earth. By myself alone I stretched out the heavens. You'll see in other places that it says, by wisdom, by this person wisdom, Yahuwah created. By this person wisdom, he fashioned the heavens. Okay? That person wisdom in the book of
There's all
Proverbs
kinds of oneness going on.
is Yahusha, basically, the person wisdom in the book of Proverbs. He has spoken with us by his Son, whom he ordained heir of all things. By him, again, he made the universe. For he is the brilliance of his esteem, meaning his image. Okay? The image of his being, meaning the image of his essence.
Mine says exact.
Exact representation probably would be better
Yeah,
for
that's
English
what mine
speaking
says.
people. And upholds all things by the power of his word. And he, in his essential being, has accomplished the purification of our sins. So Yahusha himself has accomplished that. And he sat down at the right hand of the majesty on high. And I think it's important when we read that to not humanize
Yeah.
that concept, okay? Let's not try to use our human thinking to try to rationalize that concept of sitting at the right hand.
Yeah.
Okay, and this one is altogether greater than the angels. Okay, he can't be an angel because he's greater than the angels. Okay, according to how much more excellent than theirs is the name which he possesses. Notice how it's singular, the name. Okay, for to which one of the angels did Allah ever say, meaning which of the angels did Yahuwah ever say, you are my son? Today I have begotten you. And you can find this in Proverbs chapter 8, Yahusha speaking from his point of view, where he says, he has begotten me. And he's the person wisdom in Proverbs chapter 8. And again, I shall be to him the Father, and he shall be to me the Son. And again, so it's talking about their roles, their personalities, right? Their roles in the oneness, okay? Again, when he brings the firstborn into the world, he says, all the angels of Allah shall worship him,
Right.
referring to the Son. But he spoke in this way about the angels. He makes the angels the wind and ministers the burning fire. But the Son, he said, your throne, O Allah, is to eternity of eternities, referring to the Son, is his throne. Even though he's at the right hand of the Father, the throne is his. Okay, so that's why we shouldn't try to humanize that concept. A straight scepter is the scepter of your kingdom. You have loved righteousness and have hated evil. Because of this, probably the original, it would have said Yahuwah your Allah.
Mine says that.
Yeah,
Mine says
has I know it says Elohim your Elohim, which is really redundant in my opinion, but anyway, probably originally said Yahuwah your Allah has anointed you with the oil of joy beyond your companions, and again you have laid the foundation of the earth from the beginning, and the heavens are the work of your hands. So we just read up earlier that by Yahusha he made everything, but now it's saying it's only the work of his hands. So again, there's a lot of oneness here. Okay, those shall pass away and you remain, and they all shall wear out like a robe, and you shall fold them up like a cloak. They shall be changed, and you are as you are, and your years shall not end. But to which of the angels did he ever say, sit at my right hand till I make your enemies as a footstool under your feet? Behold, are they not all spirits of service who are sent into service for the sake of those who are going to inherit life, referring to eternal life, salvation. Okay, so that's the end of our reading for today. That was Hebrews chapter 1.
Yeah.
So pretty much this is just a normal chapter that Paul's talking about the oneness. He's talking about how much better Yahusha is than any of the angels. And I wouldn't be now. Let me take that back. I don't know that it's Paul that wrote the book of Hebrews. So let me retract my statement there. I don't know that it's him. No one knows who wrote Hebrews. It's a mystery. So we really don't know. We can only speculate who wrote Hebrews. But anyway, whoever did wrote Hebrews, whoever it was, whether it was one of the 12 apostles, they're making a clear distinction about Yahushua's superiority to the angels in this chapter, to his place with the Father, the oneness. This is all being spoken of in Hebrews chapter 1. Even the throne that he's at the right hand of is his throne in context. So thank you for joining us today. I hope this was edifying. Let me put my camera back on. Hope this was an edifying study for everyone involved and everyone that's watching. And so I just pray that all the listeners and viewers got something out of this today, and that this was edifying for everyone here. So thank you for joining us. To our brothers and sisters that maybe have been watching today, have a great rest of your Sabbath, whatever time zone you're on right now. I know some of us, it's still the Sabbath for some of us, but thank you for joining us. Have a great rest of your day. Shalom.